just a second. I'll let you know. So just connecting onto the who below.
Just let me know whenever.
Yes, you are now live.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the virtual event Bahrain Hybrid Cloud and Cybersecurity Summit 2021 on encompassing the region with security and resilience to stay ahead and scale in the new normal, organized by the Rendezvous experts in partnership with Oracle, Kalam Telecom, McAfee, Citrix, Veeam, and Manage Engine. I'm Shalini, and I'll be your host for today's session. Now, we are blessed to have the support of Bahrain in making this event a success, and on behalf of our partners and the entire BCC team, I would like to thank you all for joining us today. Bahrain, with its leaders, are the most futuristic thought leaders in the world. Their vision surpasses excellence, and this excellence is only possible with the support of each one of you who are focused on modernizing Bahrain. Bahrain's forward-thinking and open approach has positioned itself as the region's leaders in ICT readiness. It has also positioned itself as the right choice to assist the region's local businesses in expediting the digital transformation journey. The opportunities are endless in Bahrain, and let's explore the same over this is our last day. So today, a few pointers to make the most of the session. Dear participants, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A section where all the questions will be answered. If for any reason you get locked out during the session, please follow the same procedure to join back in or kindly refresh your page. All our partners and speakers would love to answer any questions you may have. Kindly set up a meeting or drop a message to them directly. We will also be available for your questions in the lounge area. And don't forget to visit the booths to explore all that our partners can do for you. Now, without any further delay, let's dive into the power-packed Day 2 agenda. Graciously inaugurating the stage for our Day 2, we have the power-packed inaugural keynote by our eminent chief guest, Mr. Hussein Al-Sabia, Head of Information Technology, Bahrain Mumtalakat Holding Company. Mumtalakat, we know the company as Mumtalakat. Hussein Al-Sabia, Mr. Hussein Al-Sabia joined Mumtalakat in September 2020 as the Head of Information Technology with 15 years of experience working for both local and global companies across the financial and manufacturing sectors. Hussein has a proven track record of developing and implementing robust IT strategies that deliver cost-effective business solutions that are aligned with organizational objectives. Prior to joining Mumtalakat, Hussein served as IT Director for Europe, Africa, Middle East, and Asia at Guardian Glass Holding SPC, a position he held from March 2016 till date. He has also worked with organizations such as Pine Bridge Investments, Sierra Investment Bank, and Iscan Bank in various IT roles. In addition to being a certified information systems security professional, Hussein holds a master's degree in networking and web technology from Edinburgh Napier University, Scotland. Mr. Al-Sabia, welcome, and the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Shalini.
Pleasure.
Bring up my single page slide. You should be able to see it right now.
Correct. We can see your screen.
Great. Thanks for confirming. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. By way of introduction, I'll be speaking about the foundational elements that exist and are being built in the Kingdom of Bahrain that serve as the backbone for our digital economy. That's an economy that's set to go heads first into disruptive territory with comfort in order to realize the vision that's set forth by His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince and Prime Minister, better known as the Vision of 2030. So Bahrain has taken a strategic view on building that basic foundation for a digital economy, while ensuring that cybersecurity is kept at the center stage at all times. So the government has taken a proactive approach, both in terms of looking ahead and scanning the horizon for technology that has the potential to cause disruptive change, and at the same time, preparing to embrace that change with open arms. And we see some examples of that in a minute. The government achieves this in ways such as enacting laws around digital transactions, communications, as well as personal data protection. The government has also been taking things to the next level by venturing into crypto space and putting in place guardrails to allow for innovative initiatives to develop within the country. The public sector that's been led by the Information and E-Government Authority, or the IGA, has taken the lead in partnering with Amazon Web Services, AWS, to unlock opportunities leveraging the cloud, not only as a data center. The IGA, in its governance capacity and its role as a leader by example, is walking the talk in terms of transformation and actively investing in taking government institutions to the next level in terms of digital services that are provided to the community. The view they've taken is to use the cloud as a means to achieve their objectives and not an objective in itself. If you look at the financial sector, the Central Bank of Bahrain has taken the same kind of approach of being alert to the developing trends worldwide. And they've put in place rules around crypto assets in general, taking a more holistic view around the variety of applications that the term crypto encompasses. So we're not just talking about cryptocurrencies. The Economic Development Board, on the other hand, the EDB, in its activities to attract investments, also plays an active role in facilitating creative destruction within our economy. We have an award-winning cyber threat management company that's growing on Bahraini soil, courtesy of the EDB's support. The legal and law enforcement system in Bahrain has been doing a magnificent job in making sure our laws and regulations are in sync with the global developments in the tech space, with our digital laws, as well as with our digital laws, as well as the establishment by royal decree of the National Center for Cybersecurity, the NCSC. Cybersecurity is a fundamental pillar of the national IT framework in the Kingdom of Bahrain. We have in place a well-defined national cybersecurity framework that's governed by the Ministry of Interior. It covers cybersecurity in different sectors, such as energy, finance, education, health, and including the government sector itself. On the telecoms front, Bahrain's Telecommunications Regulatory Authority, or the TRA, has implemented several initiatives in order to address cybersecurity readiness gaps in the area of telecoms that's further elevating the security posture of this sector in line with global practices, best practices, that is. The TRA has published a regulation related to infrastructure risk management, which has played a vital role in improving Bahrain's cybersecurity index. So this foundation has provided the economy with the space to innovate freely, while providing the safety rails that are necessary to ensure the protection of the kingdom and its people's interests. I'll mention some of these innovations, just some of them, that have been built on top of these foundations that we just mentioned. If we look at the financial sector, there is a lot going on. enterprise blockchain is being used to continuously develop an electronic Know Your Customer or KYC ecosystem in a partnership between Benefit, the IGA, and respected technology partners. We've started to see banks, both digital and traditional ones, leveraging KYC for fundamental processes such as customer onboarding. The Bahrain Central Bank, having issued comprehensive regulations to govern and license crypto asset services, has recently issued its first Sharia-compliant crypto exchange license. This serves to show the kingdom's appetite for embracing global advancements in the digital space, especially fintech. So as financial institutions are becoming even more comfortable with the cloud in terms of cybersecurity enhancements, we've seen in Bahrain the first bank in the Middle East and North Africa region to announce the migration of its international payment system, the SWIFT platform, to the cloud, something that grabbed the attention of other banks, not only in Bahrain, but in the region. And some have already started plans to follow suit. And speaking of the cloud and AWS in particular, the approach some of our leading companies are taking is not only to utilize AWS as a data center, that goes without saying, but to engage with global cybersecurity vendors through AWS to host their services out of Bahrain, keeping things closer to home. And by bringing more of these services to the Bahrain cloud, the intention is to make it more appealing for regional enterprises to subscribe to services hosted out of Bahrain. The AWS Bahrain Partnership has opened new doors for the economy to tap into innovative technology, given the vast network of partners and vendors that have become readily available through AWS. It's interesting to see our oil and gas sector, which is experimenting with Industry 4.0 initiatives, specifically IoT and machine learning, just to name a few examples. There's also been a growing appetite for crypto applications, especially those that utilize blockchain in areas other than finance, including transportation and international trade. And you have the Khalifa bin Salman port, for example. Another recent example is the education sector at the University of Bahrain, where they're utilizing BlockCert as a mechanism for academic credentials to be issued and also verified in a secure manner. So to summarize, the kingdom has laid a strong set of necessary foundations to allow for digital transformation in our economy, while at the same time ensuring cybersecurity is kept as an area of focus throughout. There's also a wealth of other initiatives that are in the pipeline around the kingdom within various other sectors that we haven't mentioned today. We've only just started to scratch the surface in terms of innovation potential, despite the future being unknown. But one thing is for sure, the Kingdom of Bahrain, given the investment in these foundations and also the rate of progress that we've seen to date, plans to be at the leading edge of digital transformation, supported by a community of strong cybersecurity professionals that will help make that a reality. That's it for today. Thank you so much for your time. Over to you, Shalini.
Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. It was indeed a very power-packed, data-driven presentation on a solid cybersecurity core, wherein you covered all the sectors in Bahrain. Your presentation indeed is extremely helpful. Great takeaways for the participants, Mr. Al-Sabia. And, it's really good to hear that Bahrain is leading the digital transformation and you are at the forefront as a leader and representing such a massive company and talking about the economy as well. So great and extremely thankful. The whole team of, the rendezvous experts is extremely thankful to you for creating the presentation for us, sharing the valuable insights that only you could have probably shared with us in terms of economy as well and investment when it comes to Bahrain. Truly appreciate your time for us. And again, thank you so much. You have a lovely day ahead.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Thank you. Up next, we have our very first panel discussion, which has a fantastic lineup of top speakers, indeed some of the top leaders of EMEA from various industries such as broadcasting, banking, insurance, aviation, and IT. The topic of the panel discussion is addressing cybersecurity landscape with unity, agility, and vigilance. The stage is all yours, Mr. Srinivas Mathala, our respected panel moderator.
Thanks, Lord Shalini.
Pleasure.
Very good morning to all the peers of the cybersecurity world. Very glad to be part of the community and my privilege to be present here with all you exceptional leaders. Coming to myself, I'm Srinivas Mathala. Around 2 decades of overall experience in the cybersecurity domain and around 10 years in the region, currently with OSN contributing as head of cybersecurity and IT compliance. I love today's topic and I believe its relevance and importance is apt in the current context. Being part of the cybersecurity world, we all evolved with many best practices and processes our organizations have conceived, strategized, and implemented in the last couple of decades, which are now, according to me, are facing a status quo due to the unprecedented global situation all the organizations are going through. The questions that are fear-mongering all the industries with very few exceptions, including the cybersecurity landscape. How unified are the organizations today to drive forward? How prepared are we for what's next? How can we ensure that we stay aligned to our organizational compliance values? Unfortunately, the answers are bleak for many. The golden point is organizations are trusting and inculcating in the cultural and operational practices to redefine themselves to ensure operational resilience in this new normal are unity, agility, and vigilance. Even though this trio has been on the strategic boards for good times known, but the capability and credibility to support the business in times of need was rarely tested. So to gain some insights on how organizations can sail through these unexperienced situations, today we have with us our diversified panelists representing the region's prestigious and key operational sectors to share their insights. Please allow me to welcome our allied dignitaries, Mr. Abdul Faisal Bari, Chief Information Security Officer, United Cooperative Assurance. Mr. Abdul Bari, can you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Thank you, Sir Ranas. The pleasure to be here with everyone today. I'm Abdullah Bari, the Chief Information Security Officer for United Cooperative Assurance. This is the second organization that I've joined as the CISO. A little about me, I graduated from the United States, George Washington University in cybersecurity. That was my master's degree. And I'm a passionate guy when it comes to cybersecurity. I like to always try to be a step ahead when it comes to protecting organizations and having the best policies and procedures and standards developed and implemented within the organization. Thank you so much.
Pleasure to have you here, Mr. Bari. And we have our next panelist is Mr. Ali Al Saigal, Head of IT Security, National Bank of Bahrain.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ali Al Saigal, and I'm heading the IT Security Department in National Bank of Bahrain. I've been in this field for the last 16 years. Previously, I worked in National Bank of Bahrain and Kuwait, BBK, for 5 years in the security field. Then I was heading again the department in First Energy Bank for 9 years. We built it there from scratch. Was heading the department. We certified with ISO and BCP as well was under my jurisdiction. And recently I joined NBB to continue the transformation journey. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's welcome Mr. Mohammad Asif Rayaz, Manager Information Security and Risk Management from Gulf Air. Mr. Mohammad, please introduce yourself.
Assalamu alaikum, guys. My name is Mohammad Asif Riaz. I'm the Manager Information Security and Risk Management at Gulf Air. I've been with the airline since last 7 years now. And before that, I was working in a Big Four consulting firm as an information security consultant. Security is my passion, and it's the only thing we know and the only thing I do. On the educational level, I have completed my graduation in computing from Staffordshire. Other than that, I have some certifications like CISSP, CISA, ISO 27001 lead auditor, ISO 22301 lead auditor, C-Risk, some PCI certifications, and some cloud certifications. So yeah, security, trying to look after the security of the airline and trying to secure the airline from the threats from internal and external perspective.
Yeah, that's a good lineup of certifications and knowledge you have gained over the years. So yeah, let's welcome our final panelist, Mr. Tomal Caesar, who is Group Head of Ethics and Compliance, Kareem. Mr. Tomal, welcome. Please share a word with our audience.
Hi, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here with the esteemed panelists and the organization. My name is Tomal Caesar. I've been in the region overseeing global compliance programs for the last 13 years. I'm born and raised in Chicago. I went to Stanford University. I am not a cybersecurity expert, but I think the fact that I'm here today shows that cybersecurity has become an issue for, frankly, everyone in the corporate world. So I'm happy to join and speak about my experience in compliance, overseeing various compliance organizations from Total to Emirates National Oil Company, and as Srinivas said, now currently at Careem, the ride-sharing app.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tomal. Yeah, it's my absolute pleasure to moderate this session today. And yeah, as you have heard our introduction from our dignitaries, we are talking about around 100 years of experience and expertise on board today. So looking forward to gain great insights from their experience and expertise to make most of the short span we have. So let's start with our discussion. So Mr. Abdul Bairi, so organizations today have an obligatory adoption to new remote working trends, have opened up new avenues for security gaps. So in this context, can you please share your insight on the importance of vigilance in cybersecurity landscape and the measures organizations should adopt?
Great question, Mr. Srinivas. So when you talk about vigilance, you're talking about closely monitoring, right? So let's break it up. Now, I don't want to go with technical, just about technical when we talk about SOC, EDR, and all that good stuff. When we talk about cybersecurity, there's a framework, right? You have to have a clear framework. The framework in Saudi Arabia for insurance industry consists of 4 domains. The first domain is cybersecurity leadership and governance, where it talks about the importance of implementing the cybersecurity policy, the roles and responsibility of the employees when it comes to cybersecurity requirements and project management. Our second domain is cybersecurity risk management and compliance, where we talk about risk management, how the risk is being conducted, risk assessment, the risk treatment plan, and following up with it. We talk about the regulatory compliance in this domain also. We move to the third domain, is cybersecurity operations and technology, where we talk about the cybersecurity architecture, the physical security, human resources, infrastructure security. Our last and final domain is third-party cybersecurity, which consists of contract and vendor management, outsourcing, and cloud computing. So when you're talking about vigilance and closely monitoring your environment, with all this in place, and I'm just giving a small brief of each domain. So when you talk about such as the SOC, the Security Operating Center, how important is that for each organization and the efficiency of the SOC of monitoring 24/7, making sure that it's well active? Some people outsource the SOC agreement with a third party, and they don't check or validate that the SOC is actually doing what they're supposed to do, right? You should conduct tests, ensuring such as penetration tests internally, ensuring that the SOC team is working efficiently, and they report that there is something going on with the network and the environment. Another thing is to have a network operating center to closely monitor your environment. Well, nowadays hackers are using critical timings such as Ramadan, when we are fasting during the morning, and yeah, we're humans at the end, right? We're fasting, we're tired. No one wants to stare at the computer or the laptop 24/7. So with that also comes artificial intelligence and the new technologies that use artificial intelligence that analyze the behaviors and within this nature. I hope that answers Mrs. Sularas.
Thanks, Mr. Barry. Do you recommend any specific elements to protect business against this cybercrime?
Well, of course, you should not stick with traditional firewalls. You should not stick with traditional SIM solutions. You should also look forward to the technologies that are using and utilizing artificial intelligence. Don't just rely on the humans. Also, you have to have solutions that will give you heads up if something is fishy, if something is if you download an application and it's playing around with your operating system and things like that. So you have to have these updated solutions so that you could be safer. For instance, there's an attack, a ransomware, a zero-day attack. The SOC team, it didn't get reported to them, but from the endpoint, the changes to the systems or the changes to the servers, it could indicate that it's a ransomware. And this is one way that our artificial intelligence could help you. So I think it's key to start looking for new solutions and new technologies that are in the market. And that's a good way to prevent these type of attacks from happening.
That's a very valuable insights, Mr. Barry. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Pleasure.
So, Mr. Ali Al-Saigal, yeah. So, you being from banking industry, you would have seen this. Many industries had reservations for cloud technologies. Now, with these unprecedented times, we are literally forced for a swift adoption in these demanding situations. What will be your guidance on the main cybersecurity threats to be considered before anyone starting their cloud journey?
Yes, first of all, as you mentioned, we need to know what we are protecting, what we are moving to the cloud. As you know, before COVID, it was forbidden to speak about core banking access from outside. Nowadays, we have to give. It's a business decision, and it's a business critical systems. So before you start, you need to know what you are moving to the cloud. You need to know you have the right skill set as well. You need to have which setup is suiting for your industry. For example, if we, as a bank, if we're going to move to the cloud, we need to know, are we meeting all the regulatory requirements such as PCI, payment card industry? Are we meeting, are we moving personal data for customers? Yes, we need to have the approval from the central bank. You need to know you have a compliance part, you have a technology part as well. We have to have like a hybrid setup, for example, which setup you want to go. All these are elements you have to look for and look at. Another thing I think one thing to look at, maybe if you want to start your journey, is CSA, Cloud Security Alliance framework. It's a good way to start if you don't know or you're not yet planned how you're going to start. Yeah. So you have the control matrix, what you're going to apply, and how can you go forward with it. Yes. So it's definitely a challenging journey, but I think in the end it will pay. Yeah. Thank you.
Any tips and tricks you would like to share to minimize these risks in this cloud journey?
Yes, definitely. There's a lot of tools. You know, if you are before, I know all the guys are security expert here, and I have many years in experience. Controls been changing. The data before it's in our data center. I just have to secure the perimeter, close the USB, and that's me. Nowadays, our data is in laptops, in iPads, in our mobiles. We need to follow the data. So the previous controls are not going to work today. Yeah. So we need to adapt new technologies and new standards of operating, such as zero trust, such as the latest Gartner come up with the SASE as well standard, which you follow the data. So the controls are changing. We need to adapt new controls. It's not like the previous controls. We need to apply, for example, CASP. CASP is very important for cloud setup. So these kind of things is very important. And mainly, what you are protecting and where you're going to put it, and what are the implications of these data if they get, compromised.
Thanks a lot, Ali. The framework still the tool our audience. Okay, so yeah, let's move a bit from the core cybersecurity, but a very integral component, the compliance part. Mr. Thomas Caesar. So nations and states created a lot of exceptions to mobilize organizations to operate in this new situation. The hard reality is in this chaos also, we are in a catch-22 situation where companies cannot be exempted. So share your views on how the cybersecurity has been impacted by these compliance.
Yeah, sure. So I think, previously issues such as information security, IT, cybersecurity were all kind of siloed within the industry, right? So the industry experts would own and manage this topic for and on behalf of companies and really effectively ensure that, the IT infrastructure was meeting the need through various risk assessments and control frameworks. And subsequent auditing. What we've seen now is that with the advent of events such as the SolarWinds hack that transpired in the U.S. government, is that these issues can no longer be siloed within the industry itself, and that these issues have now become front and center for companies in their general operations. And so if now that it has risen to such a level of being an existential threat to a company's integrity, to a company's reputation, to a way a company is able to even operate, it's now moved from the silo to a more centralized concern, which of course corporate compliance sort of deals with. So, in my experience 5 years ago, I would have never gotten involved in cybersecurity issues being, head of compliance. Now I'm involved in every issue that comes through the cybersecurity team. And so I was instrumental in setting up the governance, as an example, to making sure that cybersecurity issues are escalated to the appropriate channels, that they are communicated to the compliance committee, that we are reporting and covering these and sufficiently mitigating these issues. And so it's become a central concern as well. For example, Abdullah earlier was talking about, the risks with third parties. That's something that compliance deals squarely with, right? That we manage on behalf of the company. So we've ensured that cybersecurity issues is part and parcel of the third-party onboarding process. So not only are we looking for corruption and bribery exposure, we're looking principally for potential areas of exposure in terms of cybersecurity with relation to our third parties. Do they have access to our data? Are they going to be on site? What kind of controls do we have in place? What kind of contractual provisions and protections do we have to ensure that the company is safeguarded? So we definitely see, given the import of this topic, the need for these topics to be decentralized in terms of the silos and for further integration with the corporate sort of general stack through compliance.
Great. Great, Tamal. Yeah. So do you see that the integration between these two departments, like compliance and cybersecurity, does it strengthen the organization posture?
Absolutely. I mean, compliance professionals, unless you hire a cybersecurity expert, are not experts, right? We are corporate compliance experts. So we have to rely on people who have the expertise, like many of my esteemed panelists, to advise and inform about what are the granular level threats that the company faces. What compliance does is ensures that it has the visibility and institutionalization within the company, so that these issues are not just dealt with by a handful of people, but that they're escalated to other stakeholders that have and interact with this. Ultimately, their cybersecurity exposure comes in many different forms, right? It could be through the ERP systems, it could be through your third parties, it could be through coding or hacking through email, so on and so forth. So given the array of areas and array of exposure, we want to make sure that it's fully integrated and that the company has a fully integrated approach, and compliance sort of partnering up with cybersecurity ensures that we have that full supply chain covered and the correct visibility and authority behind it to make the changes and governance requirements part and parcel of the company.
Okay, absolutely agree with you. Thanks a lot for your insights, Tamal. That really helps our cybersecurity guys to align with the compliance departments in the organization. Okay, so let's move to our next panelist, Mr. Mohammad Asif Raza. Currently, many industries are worst impacted, but still we have a lot of regulatory requirements. And as Mr. Tamal has also addressed, particularly the integration with third parties and business partners is an issue. So can you share your insights on cybersecurity challenges related to vigilance for third parties and business partners?
Yeah, actually, the challenge is quite huge. And the reason is that there is no single mandated standard for where we can all talk to each other in the same language. There are some standards where PCI DSS is there, but then the scope is limited to the CDE environment, which is the cardholder data environment. If a selected part of information is not part of CDE, it's not under PCI DSS. And how the third parties, how the business partners are managing that information is a challenge. With the introduction of regulations related to data privacy, like GDPR in the EU and PDPL in Bahrain, and there are some other regional standards also, like in UAE, they have their own standard. In Oman, they have a very good standard. Those standards are there, but there is no independent review of the cybersecurity posture of the organization. There is no piece of paper or there is no piece of assurance which can tell us that, okay, they will take care of our data well. There are certain vendors we talk to, especially in our business line. And I believe the same is with other vectors also, that we have to share information with our partners. How they work with the information is a question mark. There are certain security standards, like there is ISO 27001, there is COBIT, there is ITIL, there are so many standards, but are they following it or not? Are they following it with the full scope or not? These are all the questions. So the challenge is huge, but the way forward is also there. But it's a bit difficult. The way forward, how we tackle it is that we try to incorporate the security requirements from the contractual perspective and the SLA perspective. So we try to cover it from that perspective. But again, all vendors are not the same. Not all vendors have the same size of security and compliance team who will be managing it. Some vendors have a small team. Some vendor has a very big team. So again, it's not one size fits all. The challenge is there. and it's like a daily battle to ensure that we are on the right side.
Okay. So based on what you have conveyed, do you think a well-integrated threat and response mechanism can be beneficial in securing cybersecurity landscape?
Yes, it can be very beneficial. I actually personally believe that this is the only way in the longer run all the organizations can be saved by saving each other. Like if there is a breach happening somewhere, or if there is even a threat in the same industry or in the same region, how quickly we are informing other sister concerns, other sister organizations, or even our supply chain for the threat, on the attack, or even on the resolution, whatever. How quickly we do it, actually, it depends a lot on how easily we are able to, or how quickly we are able to contain the damage. Like recently, just beginning of this week, there was a breach on one of the reservation system, which fortunately we are not using, which is used by some budget airlines in the region and also internationally. That reservation system was breached, and it was a malware attack, and there was no bookings for them for the last 5 days. There is no online bookings. They are doing everything manually. So how quickly they shared this information with their peers, with their supply chain, that helped other organizations tackle their the security part of it. Also, like what was explained by Mr. Tomil and Mr. Ali about like the compliance challenges, the security challenges, the ever changing landscape from security perspective as well as from threat perspective. All of this is a challenge, and this can only be covered if we are working together. A very good example is in Bahrain. They have this IGA. They have this service called Bahrain CERT, which is the secure computer emergency response team, and they are sharing advisories related to regional threats, related to industry threats, with all the big organizations, which is a very good example of it. But we can do more. We can have more organization to organization interaction, and ensure, like, the biggest challenge in this case is that no organization can inform other organization that we are breached. That's really bad from compliance as well as from the reputation perspective. So we need to have some mechanisms where we share the information, but anonymously, where we don't tell that XYZ organization got breached, but we said that some organization got breached, something like this. But this can really, I believe this is the only way we can survive, by working together.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Mohammed. That's pretty good to know that you are not part of that list. But,
yes,
this is our day-to-day journey in the cybersecurity world. There is a lot of valuable insights from all the panelists. Thanks once again. And Naveen, do we have any questions from the teams?
Yes, thanks so much there. Mr. Srinivas, as of now, I don't see any questions, and it's just that we are short with time. So maybe we've got a minute, maybe a quick round of question to the panelists. Do you have anything?
We have. I'd just like to give a overall roundup in terms of what we have discussed. Like Ali has discussed, like Mr. Bahri has discussed about the frameworks in the kingdom and how we should align it. And Mr. Ali has shared about the banking industry and the regulations they have gone through and how they are evolving to the cloud journey. And Tomal has shared about the importance of the compliance and the cybersecurity world integration, which is the most needed thing if an organization has to move forward. And Mr. Mohammed has discussed about the third-party integration and the tight integration of platforms and the social responsibility to communicate to the world so that, okay, I'm impacted, but I want to stay calm. That will not help either them or any of the industry peers. So Yep, absolutely a pleasure to moderate this allied dignitaries, and thanks all once again. And Naveen, back to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you.
Srinivas, and all the panelists. It was an informative session. Of course, the audience had a lot to take away from this discussion. Thank you so much again, and we will see you all soon in our next editions. So, yes, moving up, or rather, moving on to our next keynote presentation. So, we have Mr. Ankit Rajpal, the territory manager from Veeam Software, who will be talking about modern data protection for hybrid cloud. So, Ankit, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Naveen. I hope you can see my screen and I'm loud and clear.
Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Naveen. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Bahrain. Thank you very much for joining this session. And thank you, Naveen and the team for Bahrain Hybrid Cloud and Cybersecurity Summit for giving me the platform to come and perform. We are proud to be a global sponsor for the event. And so here I go with my presentation. So today I'm going to talk about modern data protection for the hybrid cloud. That's what the theme of the event is. It's about the hybrid cloud and cybersecurity. And at Veeam, we're going to talk about how we help you protect your data across different hybrid cloud platforms, whether it's private cloud, whether it's public cloud. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Naveen already introduced myself. I'll just do a quick introduction again. My name is Ankit Rajpal. I'm Territory Manager for Bahrain and Oman region, handling this position for the last 3.5 years. And I've been working with Veeam since 2015, and actually have been in the Veeam ecosystem since 2011, pretty much since existence of Veeam in the Middle East region. So that's about myself. All right, so let's move on. And not moving on, actually looking a year back, if we talk about year 2020, what are the things which come to your mind? Well, it goes without saying, pandemic, uncertainty, unprecedented, challenging, and all those negative things come to our mind, right? Now, it's been more than a year we've been running in pandemic. Things don't seem to get as any better, but it's that we are a bit more prepared now, right? If we talk about 2021. So what did we learn? What were the positives of last year? There was a lot of learning. There was a lot of growing in certain industries. There was a lot of connecting. We evolved and we found new ways of connecting to the world, connecting to people. When there were lockdowns, we were sitting locked in our houses. We were connecting with all our friends all over the world because there was not much to do, and we wanted to make sure everyone was safe and keeping all right. So, and we found new innovative ways of conducting business. We transformed the industry. So there was a massive wave of digital transformation because of the pandemic disruption, right? So that's what we've experienced in last year, and that's what changed the way, especially our industry. If we talk about IT, we've come through a massive transformation. As per the words of Microsoft CEO, Mr. Satya Nadella, we've seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in just 2 months. I love this quote, and we actually experienced that when the lockdown started to happen last year around the same time, around March, April time around the world. Companies were down, people were moving to online businesses, people didn't know what to do. People who were dependent on physical businesses had really, really tough time. So the time came in, if you would not be online, you would not be in business, or if you would not be digital, you would not be in business, right? So digital transformation is the only way forward for any business or any industry to survive, right? Now at Veeam, we help you to have your always on business, and we make sure that your business always stay on and your digital transformation continues as per the plan, so you can still be very much relevant in the business. At Veeam, we are the most trusted provider of backup solutions that deliver cloud data management. Again, that's the key, that using our backup solutions, we help you deliver cloud data management. And that's what we're going to talk about in further slides. But before I move forward, I'll do a brief introduction about Veeam. So as a company, Veeam is very young. I won't really call it very young now, but I've been used to calling Veeam very young. We only started our operations in 2006. So it's been 15 years since Veeam's existence. And in 2006, if you roll back or if you rewind your brains 15 years back, 2006 was the time when virtualization was mainstream. Like today, everyone's talking about cloud. 15 years back, everyone was talking about virtualization and it was coming into mainstream. So VMware was disruptive, Microsoft Hyper-V was disruptive. And that was the time when Veeam was born. It was born in the virtualization era. And we focused on that particular market where we actually designed certain solutions only for virtualized workloads, right? So we got very popular with VMware admins and we were actually seeding the market. So in 2006, we started the company, but we didn't start selling any products. We were just seeding the market with some cool tools around VMware, some fast SCPs, granular restores, some magic which you can do with your VMware environments. And that's what we did. In 2008, 2 years later, in Q1 of 2008, we actually came up with our first product, which was called Veeam Backup for VMware version 1. At that point in time, like 13 years back, we were a small company working from a garage in Ohio with about 15 people. And where we come today, if I talk about our year results end of 2020, here we are. We are a $1.1 billion revenue company. 82% of the Fortune 500 and Global 2000s use Veeam in their production data center. So these are not small companies. These are massive, massive companies listed on New York Stock Exchange, running the world. 82% of them use Veeam in their production data centers. We've acquired about 400,000 plus customers in last 13 years. So that's a massive acquisition and massive growth for any company in such a short span of time. We've got presence in about 160 plus countries. We've got 4,500 employees. So from 15 employees 13 years back to 4,500 employees. So it's a great success story. There has to be something right that we've been doing. And the credit of our success goes to people like yourselves, like our customers who actually appreciate technology, who embrace technology and appreciate innovation. So that's where our Net Promoter Score comes into the play. If you would see that Veeam's Net Promoter Score stands at a whopping 75, which is a 3.5x of industry average. Industry average at 21, and we are 3.5 times more successful or more giving customer happiness, satisfaction to our customers. So that's what makes Veeam very successful in such a short span of time. Now, I was talking about the references around the world, but what matters is who are references in country, in Bahrain, right? So if you would see some of the logos on my presentation, this is just the tip of the iceberg, but then the whole point is to highlight few names from every vertical, whether it's banking, whether it's oil and gas, whether it's healthcare, whether it's real estate, whether it's utilities, energy, whether it's entertainment like Bahrain International Circuit. We got pretty much most of the customers on Veeam, and this journey just grows and grows. And these customers just embrace more and more that Veeam has to offer. So if any of you probably are in the crowd, or if anyone wants to speak to any of these clients, I'll be more than happy to organize reference calls as well later on. Like all the good work which Veeam has been doing has also been appreciated and accepted by the industry review companies or research companies likes of Gartner, Forrester, and IDC. Veeam's been named leader, #1 market growth share. All of that stuff is being acknowledged by them. And if you look at the Gartner's Magic Quadrant for enterprise backup and recovery space, you would see where Veeam exactly stand. Very proud to see that we are in the top right corner in the leaders. I remember when first time we made it in Gartner's Magic Quadrant was I think 2014 or 15, and we were somewhere there in the visionaries. And I've seen Veeam climbing up year on year to the ladder, getting into the leaders quadrant, and now very proud to say that we are at the top. And thanks to our customers, thanks to our R&D for trusting us and taking us to that spot. So, and we plan to dominate that spot. If you would see our worldwide market share, Veeam's global market share is #3. So we are the third biggest player. And I think if the 2020 numbers are out, H2, I saw that we probably reached #2 in that space, but then that needs to be updated and validated yet. So we hold a #3 global share in the global markets. If we look at EMEA, the market where we are there, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, Veeam holds a #1 market share. So we are the biggest player when it comes to enterprise backup and recovery software. Veeam holds #1 market share on that. All right, so coming down to cloud data management. So from Veeam perspective, what is cloud data management and how we actually help you achieve that? So there are 5 core pillars when it comes to delivering cloud data management. Number one, and the core job being a backup and recovery. So the backups is something which needs to be done daily and for pretty much everything. Today, you're not just limited to your data center, you've got your laptops, you've got your PCs, you've got your cloud workloads, and you want something which seamlessly backs everything. So your backup should just work, and you should want something least to be worrying about that whether your backups are happening or not, right? So it's your daily chores. So it must be running. So there's this slogan called "It just works," which actually came from one of our customers, where our customers told us that, you know what, since I've deployed Veeam, it just keeps working, right? So it should just keep working. It's fully software defined. That's what you expect from a modern software today. We've been talking about governance and compliance in the previous session. So Veeam actually helps you achieve that. Veeam got ransomware protection. When security fails and you have to come down to your backups, Veeam actually does give you protection from ransomware with a lot of different tools and mechanisms that we have in place. We help you do your data security and compliance assessment with our monitoring and analytics and reporting tools. We help you achieve all those compliances. And when things go wrong, when there's a disaster, you need proper orchestration in place. So when you have to recover from a disaster, you should not be going all crazy all over the place, trying to sort out what is really going on. But there has to be a predefined plan, and that plan should be executable and has been tested many times that it can be executed, and it should be well documented. So Veeam helps you achieve all of that. Veeam helps you reuse the data for DevOps and app development. Now everything is moving towards faster digital transformation. Customers and partners and end users and customers have got a lot of pressure to develop new apps, bring it to market very soon. So Veeam helps you utilize your backup data to use it for DevOps and bring some new applications to the market really quick. Monitoring and analytics become very important, especially artificial intelligence driven monitoring and analytics just adds up to it. So that's what Veeam offers you in our platform, where we can analyze your trends, analyze your behavior, and give you reports accordingly and tell you how the trends in your environment like. We can do automated issue remediation. So if we find there's a problem, we can take a pre-approval and fix those problems by itself automatically, so that the human interference on day-to-day matters get as minimal as possible, and you're reaching towards more of artificially driven environment. And the most important thing, especially for Bahrain, is the cloud mobility. How we can help you move your on-prem workloads into the cloud, how we can help you move your cloud workloads to another cloud or bring it back to on-premises, how we can help you actually bring a copy of backup from on-prem to cloud or vice versa, and how we can actually help you maintain your automated data retention policies, especially, there are heavily compliance driven industries like banking, heavily regulated industries. Over there, your data retention is very, very important. Your compliance and governance becomes very, very important. So Veeam gives you the tool to help you achieve all of that. Now, how do we exactly do all of that? What are the products that make it happen? So in this slide, I'm going to talk about the Veeam availability platform. This is an overview of all the tools that Veeam has to offer and how we actually make it happen for you. Whether you're running your data center on premises, in your private cloud, whether you're running in a software as a service like Office 365, whether you're running in a public cloud like AWS or Azure or Google, or whether you're dependent on a local cloud provider like in Bahrain we have Kalam. Veeam has solutions for all of those environments and can help you unify data across all of them. So how do we do it? Let's look into this. So Veeam Availability Platform, the core product that we've got is Veeam Availability Suite, which is a combination of backup and replication. As the name suggests, it does backup and replication, disaster recovery for you, and Veeam One, which does your monitoring, analytics, and all of the automation stuff, right? Now, this is mainly designed for virtualized environment, which covers your VMware Hyper-V, which covers your VMware vSphere, which covers your Microsoft Hyper-V, which covers your Nutanix AHV. So these are the hypervisor level integration that we've got. Then we got plugins for your enterprise applications, databases like Oracle RMAN, SAP HANA, and NAS file share. So all of that is managed by this product. Now, there's a perception of Veeam that Veeam only does virtualized environment, and that's what we changed a few years back. Now we do pretty much anything and everything, and that's what we're going to focus in the next few buttons. So we introduced Veeam Agent for Windows and Linux a few years back. This comes and integrates into Availability Suite, and this pretty much covers about 98% of your physical server workloads. Very robust product, very mature product, and being embraced by all Veeam customers globally. Sells like a hotcake, very easy to manage. Again, centralized management into Availability Suite. Then we look at Veeam agents for AIX and Solaris. So we have to go a few steps backward to give you Veeam agents for AIX and Solaris for the legacy environments. That's got covered. The Veeam backup for AWS, our native backup tool, which does backup for AWS environment using AWS snapshots, takes backups to S3. From S3, you can bring it on premises, and vice versa. You can actually do backups for your on-prem VMware machines, Hyper-V machines, and also send a copy to AWS. So that complete cloud mobility picture is completed with backup for AWS, and the same thing we do for Azure as well. We can protect your native Azure workloads, whether it's Azure instances, Azure databases. Same goes for AWS, whether it's your RDS, whether it's your config files, whether it's your EC2 instances. We back up all of them, back it up to object storage, bring it down to on-premises, right? Similar capabilities which we recently launched for Google Cloud Platform. So it doesn't matter what public cloud you have, we've got it pretty much covered. Now, all of this is bundled in one licensing called Veeam Universal Licenses. Then we got Veeam Disaster Recovery Orchestrator, which is a VMware-only product to enhance your DR orchestration. And the most important, Veeam Backup for Office 365. Everyone's moved, I see most of the customers have moved their data into Microsoft's cloud, but what they forget is that backup still remains customer's responsibility and the data protection still remains customer's responsibility. So that's where Veeam comes into the play. We actually help you protect your Office 365 data, help you bring it a copy on premises, or take it to AWS, or take it to Azure, completely your choice. And then one of the latest feather to the crown is Coston K10, the product which we recently added, a company which we acquired. This is a native product designed for backup for Kubernetes. So that's what Coston does. If you have Kubernetes, VMware Tanzu, Red Hat OpenShift, Amazon EKS, this product takes care of you. So that's a very high level overview of what Veeam Availability Platform is. I think I'm running short on time, so I would be skipping a slide and I'll open up for questions. Thank you.
Right. Yes. Thanks so much there, Ankit. In fact, a very a brief presentation. And yes, we have one question. Rather, there are a few, but then we've chose to, ask you this. This came in from Mr. Atul Ahuja, right? How do you propose managing hybrid environments? So very quickly, your point of view on this, Ankit.
Okay, so what we do is the Veeam Availability Platform, which I showcased, right? So that is the core heart of our product, right? Now, if you look at customer scenarios today, especially Bahrain, right? So there was a big push from IG and the Bahrain government that move whatever you can or as much as you can, or if possible, everything onto AWS, right? So we see that customers have recently started migrating a lot of their workloads onto AWS. A lot of workloads, we see some customers prefer Azure, and then all the emails and Office workloads, SharePoint workloads, Active Directory, share filing like OneDrive has moved to SaaS platforms like Office 365, and there's still a massive workload which is left on premises, right? So Veeam helps you with migration of all of these data across different platforms, bringing that data on-prem, taking that data to the cloud, and all of that is possible through one power tool, which is Veeam Availability Platform. So it is one of the biggest concerns. I was attending yesterday's session, and which was an architect from IGA. I forgot the name of the gentleman, and he mentioned that when you're moving something to cloud, you have to see a lot of things: the DNSs, backups, platforms which you're going to use, and we actually complete that picture in which we make sure that the backup and disaster recovery of whatever workloads, wherever they're going to sit, is being taken care of. So Veeam actually fills that picture of data protection for your environment. Doesn't matter where it sits.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dad. Thanks so much, Ankit. I hope that has answered the question from Mr. Atul. We in fact have received a few more, of course, considering the restriction with time, and we're like about 5 minutes late on the agenda. So we have to probably share those questions over to you so that you could answer it on a later note. And thank you so much there, Ankit. And yes, for the audience, we have Veeam Software as one of our sponsors, and you can visit their launch and look for more information about the solution offerings from Veeam. And thank you so much, Veeam, for sponsoring this event. and looking forward to associate with you for many such initiatives. Thanks, Ankit.
Thank you, Naveen.
Pleasure. So yes, up next, we have a keynote presentation from Mr. Nigel Houghton, the cloud and privacy spokesperson for the Europe, Middle East, and Africa from McAfee. And McAfee is one of our sponsors as well. So yes, Nigel, so the stage is yours.
Okay, can you hear me and can you see my screen?
Yes, very clear, and yes, the screen is perfect.
Excellent. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about was trying to help you discuss cloud risks with the rest of your organization. I was here all day yesterday and today, and we've shared a lot of information already, and I don't want to repeat some of the things that you've heard. And so I'm going to try and dive straight into how do you talk to the rest of your organization and get them to understand the issues that you're dealing with, honestly get budget to be able to address cloud risk, and how can you get them on board when maybe they're talking a slightly different language than you are. If you're in IT, you need to talk to governance, risk, and compliance. And unfortunately, I think that quite often it's really difficult to try to explain the issues that you're here to deal with. We talked a lot about making sure that configurations are correct, that we're looking at the cloud providers that we're using and making sure that they've got all of the security measures in place that they need to put there. But is there more than that? And I just want to use a quick example of a film, The Sixth Sense. Don't know if you've seen this, but if you have, you may remember the little boy there who said, "I see dead people, but they don't know they're dead." I think in the IT world and in the business world, I see siloed people, but they don't know they're siloed. We really need to help the rest of our colleagues understand the risks that we're dealing with on a daily basis. And that means talking in their language and telling them perhaps some simple things, which is you can go out and buy a car. You can buy a car that is well designed, that has airbags and seatbelts and so on, but you can still drive it at 100 miles an hour into a wall. And that's the same, I think, with cloud, that you can buy the most secure cloud service that you can. And there's lots of people that we will trust to provide us with secure systems, but they can still be used in an insecure way. And if I quote from Gartner, you can see here that they say 99% of cloud security failures will be the customer's fault. That's you, that's me, that's our employees, that's our DevOps team forgetting to turn on the security measures in AWS. It's also users often not understanding what they have got in front of them, not understanding the power of the cloud. We all know stories of people who've emailed the wrong person. Well, the same thing can happen in the cloud as well. I've put this file on OneDrive and then I shared it with someone, but instead of just giving it to them, I gave them an open link and they forwarded it on to someone else. Instead of sharing a file, I shared a whole folder. I sent it to people that I shouldn't have done, etc., etc. So I think while we as IT security professionals and IT professionals are often worried about the configuration of the systems and which systems we're using, we've also got to think about the users. And there's lots of articles about this, and as you can see, here's one: human error is causing issues during the pandemic. So many of us are working from home, are implementing BYOD for the first time. You know, what is the rule for that? Is it okay? Here I've got a laptop, it belongs to the company. The company allow me to download sensitive data onto that laptop. I've also got my phone next to me. That's my phone, it belongs to me. Should the rules be different for my phone? Should they say, well, yes, you can access the corporate data on my phone, but you can't download it to the phone because I then lose control? We can help you with this. I'm not here to sell you on McAfee's systems, but in the panel session earlier, one of the speakers, Mohammed, I think it was, who said, we need to look at CASB technology. CASB technology, Cloud Access Security Brokers, is there to try to make sure that the security that you're used to in email and on premises can be migrated to the cloud. And of course, My colleagues and myself can talk to you afterwards about the technology. But what I want to talk about is how you get everyone else on board. And here's my little example. I wrote a white paper called the 360-degree shared responsibility model, realizing that lots of other shared responsibility models were written just for IT people. And they were written by people who wanted to say, these are all the things that we do, and then very quickly, everything else is your fault. For me, the interesting bit is everything else. And let's look at how I've presented this often to legal people, because I've spoken to legal people at events like this who've said to me, oh, if there's a cloud problem, we'll just sue the cloud provider. That's a complete misunderstanding of the problem. And I said to them, have you ever rented a car? And they said, well, yeah. I said, look, when you rent a car, there's a shared responsibility. Let's go through it and then compare that to the cloud. With a car, you need it to be built well. You don't want it to fall apart at the first corner. Look, you've got seat belts, but it's the responsibility of the driver to put the seat belt on. So a shared responsibility between manufacturer and driver. And they go, okay, that makes sense. What else is there? Well, servicing brakes and tires when it comes out of the factory, responsibility of the manufacturer. A year later, the responsibility of the rental company to ensure that it's up to date. Okay, yeah, I understand that right now. There's 3 groups of people. What else have you got? Seatbelts for passengers. Manufacturer, driver. Hey kids, put your seatbelts on. Passengers. Maybe passengers are like users in an IT world. Fuel, oil, water, responsibility of the rental company when you pick it up, make sure it's full. Your responsibility as driver as you drive it around. Insurance is always included in your contract, but of course the rental company will happily sell you collision damage waiver and add-on insurance. Whose responsibility is that? Not quite the driver. This time it's the renter. Now, maybe the renter, the legal person signing the contract, is similar to governance, risk and compliance, or legal or finance when they're signing the contract with your cloud service provider. And all of this is happening before you put in your bags and you start driving it. It's understood. Actually, we don't even think about it. We just put down our credit card, pick up the keys and drive off and come back. The important thing about this model, and let's remember, I'm not teaching you, but I'm talking to you about how you talk internally, is to share with your internal team that you need to address every row. You can't miss one and say, well, everything else was okay, but I just missed that little thing. Well, let's look at cloud, and it's the same idea, the same concept. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people talk about, can I use this cloud provider? What's their security measures? Where's their data center? Have they got security of the infrastructure and so on? And that's okay. It's a start, but it is only the start. It's only the beginning. Then you've got to think, well, what features do they have to configure the cloud? And those features and how I configure them are actually my responsibility. So DevOps, DevSecOps, if you've got one. IT security, you've got to make sure that you've set up the features correctly. Then what about the data that you're putting in there? Data classification. Well, that's only going to be the responsibility of the enterprise. Only the enterprise knows what is sensitive data. And then you've got users and what users might do. And unfortunately, our users can very often, as I explained earlier, use secure systems in an insecure way without realizing it. And what we've seen in the last year, of course, is enormous growth. Here we are using Zoom, massive growth in Teams, for instance, and we could be sharing in Teams all sorts of information. So let's use Teams as a quick example. It's just one application of something like 30,000 different cloud applications. I looked at the statistics for June last year of all of our Envision Cloud customers worldwide. And what we saw, these are average numbers. We had an average of 100,000 team meetings in 1 month. 6,500 new members added to Teams. Can you manage that? Are all the members the right members? I was once added to a team that was actually for a different department. Maybe they thought my name was similar to somebody else's, and then I was removed from that team. But in that short amount of time, could I have seen some information that I shouldn't have? Let's also remember Teams can be used for external users. And we see on average about 3,000 external guests invited to a team every month. That's one every 5 minutes. Are those the external guests you want? Have you set up, we trust these domains, but not these domains? You can do that. You can do that either in Teams or with a CASB product. What else? We see third-party applications added to Teams. So there's Polly, for instance, a polling app where we can add information to Teams. But data starts moving now from Teams, which maybe you trust, to Polly, which maybe you don't trust. So how do you know once you start opening up the cloud that it's being used in an effective way? And if you don't use Teams yourself, here's me with a picture of different things that I could share. I could share applications in Teams, but I could also share my screen. If I shared my screen and didn't turn off email, what if an email appears on the top of my screen and then it's been shared with everybody I'm in the team with, and that says something confidential? So we've got to realize that actually users need help and they need to be educated on how to use these applications. And we also need to put in guardrails. We need to put in systems that will try to make things secure. You can see on your screen at the moment the top 10 Teams threats overview. I can never say that. I also wrote a paper on Teams, and you can download that. I'll show you, I'll share the links with you afterwards, that talks about some of those threats. And many of them can be addressed with technology, but not technology only. We do need to educate our users about what's appropriate and what isn't, who to share information with, etc. So what we need to do, firstly, is find out what services people are using and what security modes they have. And some of this was talked about earlier. You know, you can't say this cloud is always bad, this cloud is always good. You've got to look at the attributes of those clouds and you decide what's appropriate for you. So for instance, you can see here, 9% of cloud services that we know about encrypt data at rest. Maybe a better thing will be encrypting data in transit, because if people are using shared Wi-Fi, maybe you need that data to be encrypted in transit. And you probably need to make a decision that says, is encrypted in transit an important attribute for us? Do we want to block those cloud services that don't encrypt data in transit? And so the good news is some of these controls can be very positive. You look at the bottom three here, it's about integration with your corporate system. So I use Trello, for example. It's a system to do task management, and you can share it with employees. But before getting into Trello, I have to go through the corporate McAfee single sign-on service. McAfee know I'm using Trello. If I was to leave the company tomorrow, my access to Trello would be removed. So is that the same in your organization? Have you made sure that every cloud service that departments are using are safe and secure and are being integrated with your corporate system? Because if not, when an employee leaves, maybe they'll take some data with them. So this is a list of about 70 or so different attributes. And I'm not going to go through them all. We certainly don't have the time. But this is the sort of information we at McAfee can give you about all the different cloud services. You can see the likely risks for data or user or the service or business or legal. Some websites, for instance, will say that they own all of the data that's uploaded. Some of them will have cross-site scripting problems. Some of them will perhaps have very few compliance certifications. Some of them will have PCI. For instance, PCI was mentioned earlier. If you need to make sure that you support PCI, you also need to make sure that your cloud service provider supports PCI as well. So you need to know what's going on the shadow cloud, but you also need to control, probably, actually more importantly, those services you do trust. Because, as I said earlier, they can be used in an insecure way. So Microsoft 365, Salesforce, ServiceNow, Box, all of those services, and of course, AWS or Azure for your own applications. Are you sure they're being used in a secure way? And so I'm not going to go through this slide, but this is part of a zero trust presentation that I give. And it's looking at what might a single user do on a typical day. And every action they take, you need to look at, is this action okay? You know, Is Nigel's activity right now of sharing this file something that we should run DLP before the file gets shared, even if it's through a cloud service? Is Nigel allowed to send this file by email? I'm going to share this presentation with all of you afterwards if you want a copy. I've got no problem, but it's probably about 40 megabytes. So I bet you I can't email it to most of you because you've got a block on attachments over a certain size. So I need to put it on a cloud service and you pick it up from that cloud service. So we need to make sure that we're putting the same security into cloud as we would anything else. And things like user behavior analytics. Let's look at this. The first one, the top left-hand side, turn on the phone, turn on the laptop. And at that point, we know, we IT people know where I am, what time it is, which device I'm using, which operating system. You know, we know all of that stuff. We know, oh, look, Nigel is using the same IP address he's used for the last few years. He's probably at home. Then at the bottom, what happens? You know, all of a sudden, Nigel turns his devices off and then seems to log in from a brand new device in a new country. Nigel uses an Android device from Beijing at 3 o'clock in the morning. Wow, stop. Unusual behavior pattern. He wasn't there 2 hours ago when he turned his devices off, and he hasn't been to Beijing in the last, I don't know, 10 years. So we can use user behavior patterns as people access cloud services and say, he tried to log into 365, he tried to log into Salesforce from a new device in a new country, unusual behavior pattern. Do the same sort of thing that banks do with credit cards. That's unusual purchase, turn him off. Let's make sure that we investigate and check what's going on, because in fact, he couldn't have got to Beijing from the UK, so something weird is going on. We can give you the power to make these decisions, and we can give you the power then to enforce your security. So what do you need to do about it? Well, I think it's unfair that security is an IT problem. It shouldn't be an IT problem, because actually we should be working with multiple departments to try to work out what rules do we want, what policies do we need. I'd even say, and I work for a vendor, don't buy a product until you've worked out what you want to do with it. So you can see here, bring people together from different teams, have discussions with them, decide what are the biggest risks in your organization. This particular slide, I've worked with some people and helped facilitate discussions. I've spent 2 hours with them preparing this slide and agreeing with them which was their biggest risk. For you, it might be infrastructure as a service. For someone else, it might be Teams. For someone else, it may be 365 or Salesforce. You need to decide what's the biggest threat to you. And then start mapping to regulations. PDPL, GDPR, PCI, Dubai International Finance Center, all have regulations. And actually, you can start mapping them to technology. This is what the regulation says. This is what we need to do in the cloud. Are there some technologies or some policies that we can set to help us? And you need to look at these as very specific requirements. Don't just ask a single question of, I don't know, is Azure safe? That's not the question. The question is, can this user in this department use Azure in this way and share information through Azure using this application with this other person? Those are the questions you need to ask yourself. And we can help you with this, because I'm going to also share with you, I think it's about 15 pages now of questions that typically we ask ourselves in workshops. And we can then work together to try to work out, well, what are the policies you need? And if you need an external facilitator to help with these discussions, let me know, because I'd be very happy to discuss with you and the rest of your internal teams. But I will demand something of you. I will demand that we use multiple people from multiple different departments, because really then we have these great broad discussions that can help you make sure that you're putting together all the security you need for the cloud. Going back to a little diagram of shared responsibility, you can see now on the left-hand side, I've put in some technologies that you need. Unfortunately, you need lots of technologies to try to make sure you're addressing every row. And there's a white paper that this comes from, which I can share with you as well. And you can share internally with the rest of your organization. But first, what you really need to know is what's going on. And again, McAfee can help you. We can give you a cloud risk report that says, these are the services in use in your organization. These are the risky ones. These are the systems that are being used that could be incorporated into your single sign-on, but probably are not. So there, I need to stop. I need to say that, you know, I didn't want to talk to you about all of our technology, but you can perhaps see through the flow that McAfee can help you deploy the cloud security that you want. And if you've got further questions, do come and talk to the rest of us and contact me. You can see my contact details there. I'll very happily share this presentation and all of the papers that I talked about. So with that, thank you very much. I hope that was interesting.
Sure, yes, Nigel, indeed, it was a very simple and also very attractive presentation. And of course, you've got some engagement from the audience. So a lot of questions on the Q&A tab that we have received. So very quickly, just one question I would want to, put it across to you. Maybe if you can answer it quickly in maybe about 30 seconds or a minute. So here it goes. If a company is using, say, about 10 cloud services with a combination of infrastructure as a service and subscription as a service, what is McAfee's approach to simplifying this complexity in terms of managing these policies?
Yeah, well, the good news is that the CASB technology is there to try to give you a platform that's the same, whatever services you're using. So let me give you an example. We could run DLP that says any file that has more than, I don't know, 5 email addresses in is likely to be sensitive data. It's maybe an employee list or it's a customer list. And we can say that should be tracked, that should be logged. Maybe we even say that shouldn't leave the organization. And then once you implement that, then that can be implemented across infrastructure as a service, across software as a service. We can set up rules that say it's okay to share that file with internal people, but not external people. And the whole idea really of a CASB is to try to simplify this, because otherwise you've got to go into every single cloud service, and every single cloud service has a different way of setting up the management. The whole idea really of a CASB is to try to have one place that you set your policy for all your cloud services, whatever they might be.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks so much there, Nigel. Indeed, yeah, of course, very informative. Of course, a lot of questions that we've been receiving would be shared with you so that you could answer them at your.
Very happy to do that.
Yes, and of course to the audience and all the speakers and all the delegates, request you to do visit McAfee's launch. If you have any questions, we have representatives from McAfee who are seated there to help you, assist you with whatever information that you're looking for. And yes, McAfee is one of our official cloud security partner, so do feel free. So thank you there, Nigel. And yeah, so we have our next panelist. First of all, apologies. Yes, we are running late with about, say, 10 minutes. So next up is a panel discussion. Yep, so we have some power-packed experts from the region who are joining in to discuss how to modernize, protect, and manage security with artificial intelligence, zero trust frameworks, and stay ahead of involving threats. So I have Mr. Rami Ayub, who is the moderator of this panel. Welcome, Mr. Rami.
Thank you, Naveen. Thank you for Life, and welcome all the panelists who joined this summit, important summit. So it's an important summit for us, okay, where we are using a modern technology, such as like hybrid cloud and other products, but we need to put the security as a mandatory feature. So today we are moving and living in a digital era where digital products in our life, in daily life. So our information is not now anymore is hosted in one location or in one file. It is spread over and transacted from between one point to another point. So security is very important to be in the top of that technology to govern this information. As today, you know, information is cost millions, okay, and any threats for that one is a big risk, which impact in the business or any stakeholder. So here we have many questions to be clarified. How security are important in our daily life? How to secure modern technology, such like a cloud, AI, automation, and etc. So I would like here to answer this question. I would like to welcome our panelists from different regions who are decent and have long experience in this field. So I would like to welcome Dr. Emmanuel Gouvi. Welcome, Doctor. Dr. Emmanuel Gouvi is a co-director and co-founder of a Global AI Ethics Institute. He's also consultant in AI ethics and with Huawei, as well as a Reach Fellow with the Center for Defense Security and Studies of University of Manitoba in Winning. Welcome on board.
Thank you for welcoming me. Thank you.
And also Madame Halal Gawi, a Senior Manager, Business Information and Cybersecurity Risk in MINAP. She has more than 14 years of experience in banking industry, technology, risk management, projects, and cybersecurity. Managed several security projects such as PCI, DCS, ISO 27001, NIST, NISA, and COBIT. Welcome on board.
Thanks, Rami.
And I'd like to welcome also Mr. Shadi Ismail, Solution Specialist from Citrix MENA. Shadi has over 11 years of experience in IT modernization and optimizing technology to address key business challenges in banking, telecommunication, government, and commercial sector. A solution architect and sales engineer, also with multiple solutions in the cloud and other areas. Welcome on board, Shadi.
Thank you a lot. Thanks for hosting us here.
Thank you. Well, I would like to start with Dr. Emmanuel. Doctor, as you are from AI background, today AI, we hear it everywhere, okay, in every location, and how important to use AI to streamline our life process, to make our life more easier. Business can be more controlled, reduce the time, the efforts. So we have many events, many summits all around about AI, okay, and how AI is important to our life. So the question here is: the quest for trust ethically is acceptable in a framework of a or global code of AI ethics?
Well, thank you for the question. You're perfectly right about the presence of AI in our everyday lives today. The paradox is that to some extent we could consider that AI does not exist per se, right? It's much more kind of a, I would say, a narrative or a speech utterance, because we cannot define what is artificial, we cannot define what is intelligence, so we are not able to define what AI is exactly, right? So we have kind of a slight idea of what artificial intelligence is or can be. So we are all discussing about this new technology, and the fact that we do not have a clear definition has opened the doors to many phantasms about the risks and the benefits of AI. So in that framework, lots of people are really concerned about the risks that are associated with artificial intelligence, obviously, right? Some of them even talking about the end of humankind, replaced by robots and AI systems. So in that framework, there is a strong need for regulation. Lots of people are saying we need to set standards, we need to set limits to the use, the development, and the programming of artificial intelligence system. The problem with legal framework is that it's a really long process. It takes time, it takes energy, it takes political will. And what we've seen so far is that this political will and this will to put some energy into that is not evenly shared in the international system. So having this legal framework is really, really difficult. So what we've done and what we've seen for the next 5-6 years is that we have developed a new narrative around ethics, what we call soft law, right? And ethics is much easier to use than legal systems because it's much more flexible and because it does not need to have any kind of legal or real framework like an international law or international agreement. So you have the conjunction of two things that are really interesting. First, artificial intelligence, which is not clearly defined. We have a slight idea of what artificial intelligence is, but we cannot define it clearly. And you have ethics, which is not well defined as well, and which is used much more as a narrative than as really a process that we have to go through in order to assess or appraise ethics. So we've seen that development of ethical standards all around the world. And now we've reached a point where we have more than 1,000 codes of ethics all around the world, and more than 60% of them are coming from the West. So the problem that I see here is that I feel like there is kind of an hegemony of the West in setting what is acceptable and what is not acceptable in terms of development and use of artificial intelligence system, right? And this is a denying of the diversity of cultural perspective on what is acceptable and what is not. When we talk about ethics, I mean, here in France or in the West, most of the time we think about the three main theories that we are using: consequentialism, deontology, and virtue ethics, right? But if you go to some other places in the world, they don't have the same mindset. They don't have the same cultural background. They don't even think about deontology, Kantian deontology. Immanuel Kant is not at the core of the philosophical thinking, for example, in Asia, right? You should definitely adjust to those cultural backgrounds in order to see if it is acceptable or not acceptable. Then in that big framework, trust is a really interesting point too, because most of the time trust is poorly defined as well. We don't know what trust is exactly. You've certainly heard about the fact that the European Union is trying to develop what we call trustworthy AI, right? Making sure that AI will be trustable. That doesn't make sense because sociologically speaking, actually trust can be only given to individuals, human beings. You cannot trust a technology. You will trust the people that are behind the technology, that have developed it or that are using it. But you cannot trust technology per se because technology is not enough autonomous to have intentions. So in your question, the big issue that we have is the words that we are all using all the time: trust, ethics, artificial intelligence. And I should add, just to finish on that, the word universal, right? Because here in the West, we do believe that we have universal values, that we share values, that we have common ideas about what is acceptable and what is not. But the point is that there is no such universal values. You can have values that will be shared by big part of the world or all around the globe, but we don't have, so far, we have not been able to define any kind of universal values. So this quest for trust, I think it's not ethically acceptable, partly because it denies the diversity of perspective that we can meet in the world. Lots of people would say that, and especially regarding cybersecurity, that trust is not a value. Distrust is a value. Vigilance is a value, right? Because you want to make sure that the system that you're using will not be a threat to you, right? So depending on your perspective, depending on your perceptions of the threat, depending on your culture, trust can be a value or it cannot be a value, right? So depending on that, it will be ethically acceptable or not.
Thank you, Doctor. Exactly. what you mentioned is a valid point. That's where can build the trust by using this technology. With AI, there is our diversity of culture, how to accept such solution or such a future. AI is a wild technology. It's an umbrella for other technologies such like machine learning, deep learning. We are dealing today with big data. So how we can give the trust for such technology to make a decision and prediction of our direction where we are going. So thank you for this input. So I would like to forward the second question here to Madame Hala. Hala, as you know, you are coming from banking background, okay? And today, as you notice, we are living in a pandemic, okay? Everywhere, where remote work has become essential for us, okay? Especially when you are dealing with banking services, from funded transfer, opening accounts. Today we find that banks are doing like competitions between them, how we can give a streamlined service to the end user through online products. Digital banking come today. We have a chatbot. So from security perspective, how we can secure these channels, how we can secure customer accounts, their transaction, how we can build on the top of that the zero trust system.
Yeah, thanks, Rami. Actually, the zero trust is not a new concept in the banking industry. I consider the banking industry as a mature industry in the cybersecurity because we are treating our clients' data and information in a more secured manner, and it's required by different regulators across different countries. So we do not provide, let's say, access to a system for everyone. We give it based on a need basis, and we give it based in a principle least privileges and just to perform a specific function. Assume we want to do a transaction. We do not allow one user to conduct the transaction from end to end. We are separating this like maker, checker, different user doing different things. How to use it now with the zero trust? Now, I think zero trust, it will be more used for enhancing the modern workplace since from COVID-19 situation it has been introduced. So we noticed that most of employees, they are working remotely, so they are not connected to the LAN network to access the systems. They are connected to the internet. They need to access a VPN connection in order to be connected to the internet, then access, let's say, the bank systems. And also for the clients, it's providing, let's say, it's the zero trust, it's supporting digital products and security. Because it's making this more secured, like it's checking the profile for the client, the behavior for the client, let's say the operating system they are using, machines, location where they are exist, how, let's say, if in case they are performing a transaction, usually what is the amount of the transaction they are performing, what is their behavior in accessing or conducting any transaction through the digital channels in the bank. So zero trust, it has a lots of benefits for banking industry and non-banking industry. In banking industry, it's something common used. We validate any access before granting the access. And also we are verifying different things, like we are verifying the identity, verifying the device used to access, verify the access itself, verify the service, the applications, and all these things.
Thanks. I would like add here one more note. Okay, do you feel security is hanging or strict or making some strict reliability of daily services?
Security, it's a must for banking industry. It's a must. If you do not have the security, then you will not be able to compete in the market because your clients, they are depending in your security system. Their money, it's secured. No one can perform a transaction on their behalf. So they are reliable on the bank's channels, security controls, and all these things. And that is why the clients take a decision to, let's say, join a specific bank or not.
Thank you, Hala, for your input. It's a valid point that security is mandatory, especially when we are dealing with such services like banking industries. Okay, where today we find many technology from blockchain, AI is implemented in the top of these services, banking services, to secure this channel. So security is becoming a mandate, okay, not a restrictions. So this ethics and this culture shall be adopted, okay, in the organization itself to implement the right foundation with their services in secure way. So thank you for input. Shadi, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you too?
You're welcome. Shadi, you are the one here was the pressure service provider. Okay, so once here, okay, you are dealing with the client and the customer, providing a solution, reliable solution for them. Encourage the motivation to transform their existing business process to more flexible, to be more reliable in their daily life. So here, from point of view, how do you feel? Okay, zero trust is important for customer to secure their end user application, especially today we are working from remotely and become now a lifestyle now. I don't think we are going back to the regular office attendance or regular meetings. So today everything is becoming virtual, remotely, from any device, any apps. So how I can build a zero trust on the top of that and secure these channels?
Sure, and this is our new norm that all of us should be adapting with. The new norm of the remote work, the new norm of the virtual access for our application, either it's an on-prem, it's on the cloud, and this is how the zero trust approach is coming to the picture. It is not related to a certain industry. I've worked on all the mix and match for industries. Then each and every industry has its own use cases, its own target and focal points, but all of them are sharing the common concept of the zero trust approach. Zero trust approach means never trusting, always checking. You need to always keep checking on the things. Either you are connecting to your on-prem applications, hybrid, or fully cloud. The solution that should be provided should be covering all of this, and you should be giving the flexibility for the customers to put their data, whether they decide. They need to put it on-prem, hybrid, cloud, their application as a SaaS model, whatever they are. And that's what Citrix is focusing on as well for helping our customers in. And our zero trust approach, which is the main concept that Aura is dealing with, I believe it's dealing with three main aspects. First of all is the device verification. I have to make sure that the device which is being used to enter the environment is verified and up to my security levels and up to my security policies. This is by endpoint analysis to be done. This is by the checking that need to be done to the device before it's entering the environment. The other way around is the user identity. User identity is one of the most important things that I don't rely only on the username and password from the Active Directory. I should be adding to it two-factor authentication, either the one-time password, either the smart card, either the login, either what are the options, Azure Active Directory on AWS. You can have to deal with all of them. The third part, which is the most important part as well, is the content security. Whenever I'm having the user now, I verify his device. And then I make sure that this is my user that is logging. Now coming to his working on production, I have to make sure that I'm securing the data that he is working on. And here is coming the content security. Content security can be done all over products, but the main concept of here, I need to make sure that there is no data leakage happen, there is no security threat affecting badly on my environment by giving, for example, anti-key logging and anti-screen capturing, software, secure web access platforms, SASE protocols. I have to give, for example, session recording, session watermarking, contextual access, analytics part, which is the most important things that is giving us the visibility from end to end on the security layer and the performance layer as well. So the secure, the zero trust approach is dealing with these three main aspects: device verification, user identity, and content security. And this is what actually Citrix is focusing on. And we are coping with all our partners and all our vendors that are we having a partnership with this, either it's fully on-prem, as I mentioned, or on the cloud with Azure, with AWS, with Google, with Oracle. That's what we are dealing to give the customer the flexibility to maintain the user experience and to make sure that we are adding on of it the top level of security.
Yes, Shadi, thanks. And from your perspective, okay, updating the remote users, as you know, when they are outside of the premise itself or outside from the cloud. So today we are using more tablets, okay, mobile systems. So how I can make sure they are up to date, they are trustable, that I am dealing not with the devices, I'm dealing with identity. As you mentioned, identity protection. So how I can to reach to that level so I can make sure that zero trust is in place?
Yes, perfectly. It's a perfect question. Does it usually we are usually thinking about that, how I'm making sure that my sensor user identity, the device is checking and it's an up-to-date. That's what I'm telling you. We have two terms: the bring your own device term, that the user can use his own devices. So maybe we are not somehow care about the device that using, but what we care is about is meeting the policy that I'm allowing that's entering him the environment. And this can be done easily by the gateway service that we are providing, SASE, software, secure web access, or even our endpoint management. We can provide an endpoint management solution for managing the device itself, for managing the application that be pushed on the device. So we are having here an end-to-end solution, starting from the user itself, wherever he is locating, from any location, from any device, in order to allow him to access any application, whether it's a data center, on the cloud, on a private cloud, it doesn't matter. We need to provide this with the highest user experience, with the highest security level solution.
Thanks, Shadi. Valid point. So I would like to go back to Dr. Emmanuel. Okay, AI is the future now. Okay, where we need to relay in the technology to streamline the process, to streamline our daily life. Okay, especially when we talk about organization itself, process automation, give the system the ability and the trust to make such decision, such implementation. So from your point perspective, is here there is a conflict of interest between AI and the security itself?
The first thing that I want to stress is that I would not say that there's a conflict of interest between AI and anything, right? Once again, AI is still a tool, right? It's really well developed, and then I was saying it's poorly defined, but it's not autonomous enough to be considered as a full agent, right? So the conflict of interest must not be between AI or any other system. The point with AI systems is that we are not knowing exactly where we're going, right? And so there is this need of trust, because there is a high level of uncertainty about AI, the way it is used, right? It's exactly what has been said by the two other esteemed speakers about cybersecurity and the zero trust framework, right? When there is uncertainty, there is threat, and where there is threat, you must be vigilant. So zero trust is considered as a virtue, is considered as a value in that specific case. The point that we have with artificial intelligence is that we really need people, and especially here in the West, we need people to trust AI because we want to sell them AI products. I don't know if you've heard about this phrase by Thomas Metzinger. He was a member of the Commission's expert who worked on the trustworthy AI for the European Union, and he left saying, quote, "The trustworthy AI story is a marketing narrative invented by industry, a bedtime story for Thomas customers." End quote. It means that artificial intelligence is mainly seen as trustworthy AI, is mainly seen as a communication tool, right? As a marketing tool, much more at the reality. Once again, the mistake that we are all making, I guess, is to reify artificial intelligence as if it exists for real and as if it was kind of a full autonomous agent. On which you can, give trust, and that can be responsible, that can be flexible, that can be this or that. We really have to refocus our thoughts on individuals that are behind those systems, right? When it comes to conflict of interest, we have to see who is developing the system, who is using it, who is selling it, for what purposes, right? Not the system itself, not artificial intelligence itself, but the people that are behind that, right? Because the problem that we have now is that all this ethical narrative that we've built, which is what I called cosmetics, which is here only to hide the reality of things, which is AI is a big market. You have huge promises financially, commercially, diplomatically behind AI, right? We all want our lion's share of artificial intelligence, but in some places like in the West, we are hiding our real goals behind a veil of let's say, ethicality, right, or acceptability by ethical standards, right? So the point is that we really need to understand that AI per se is not an agent. We have to focus on the individuals that are using it, the consumers, the people that are selling, the people that are programming, the people that are designing AI systems.
Yes, exactly. And here it's come to a point of mine, as I've been in many events talking about AI, is the question here, it's coming to my mind always, is artificial intelligence can be one day to be artificial traits? For example, we see today deep fake, okay, that we can produce a face moving, okay, using the original inputs. Same thing with face recognition, voice recognition, we can duplicate that. So I find many areas they're using this intelligence to convert it to the traits. Okay, as you know, this is a human nature. Whereas this diversity of culture to accept such AI ethics has become a problem. Okay, so the culture of the human or misusing technology has become a threat itself. So what do you feel in the future of AI in coming 10 years?
Oh, that's a really difficult job to do, obviously, to try to foresee what will happen. I don't really know. What I want to stress here, which is really important, is that I've heard a lot of things about, don't think about AI as a threat, that's science fiction, right? My point is that it's not science fiction. Even if the probability that at some point AI could become a threat to humankind for any reason, by any means, even if the probability is really low, we have now to think about it right now, even if it's once again a really low probability, and we cannot exclude it. We cannot exclude the possibility that AI can represent a threat, but this threat will depend on who is assessing the threat. Obviously, depending on your culture, depending on your geopolitical environment, depending on your philosophical background, your political systems, the threat will not be assessed the same way as for other places, other countries, other cultures, right? So in some places, and for example, if you look at the animist culture, technology is not a threat, is not seen as a threat, right? The relation to robots, the relation to technology is much easier than it is in the West, right? The reluctance to use those systems is less important than the one that we are facing here in the West. So for some people, AI is seen as kind of a panacea, the best solution to live a better life, right? To be freed from pain, freed from suffering, even freed from death. And for other, it would be a threat in the sense that at some point it could replace human beings, right? So I don't know how it will go. I know that there are lots of work that are being done currently on artificial intelligence in many fields. Obviously, it can become a threat. But once again, it will depend on who is assessing this kind of threat.
Yes, thanks you. And that's why now security products become more intelligent, okay, by understanding the behavior, okay, who's behind the system or who are using the system itself. Today, I see emails sending from US. In 2 minutes, it's being sent from UK, for example. So this far distance, how come? So that's why become more intelligent, our security product. This is where we need to use AI also in security. Okay, this traits to have visualized about this traits. Thank you, Doctor. I'll come back to Hala. Okay, you discussed about zero trust in banks or in general how it is important. So implementing such solutions, security solutions, zero trust specifically, is there any barriers for implementation, obstacles you are facing during the implementation?
Yeah. Actually, there is no one single application can be used to provide you with a zero trust solution. So we're having a challenge for incomplete solution. No vendor provide end-to-end solution for zero trust, which leads sometimes to integration issues between the solutions provided. This is very important because, let's say, for authentication or multi-factor authentication services, it can be provided by a different vendor who is providing a threat algorithm or policy to the organization. You need to understand how those systems integrated together, what is the shortage in each system, or what is the issues, and how to come over these things. Also, having end-to-end visibility, it's required to implement a zero trust. And maybe one vendor, he might not understand the full process, let's say, for a transaction, in order to identify what needs to be identified, which systems must be there, what system talking to which other systems, because let's say in banking industry, we are not using one system to perform the full transaction. You need to work on a different applications. In case you are, let's say, implementing network segmentations for the applications, you need to understand how it works together, which user has access to which system, and all these things.
Exactly. So there is no one system, as you mentioned, have the full control. Okay.
Yes.
Do you believe that user awarenesses or user itself is a tool itself, that by user taking the right prevention, he has awarenesses for the existing policies? As you know, for ISO 27001, we have about 14 domains to be secured. Okay, so most of them, they are not a tools to implement these policies and security. There is some domain can be protected by tools and control, and some of not, depend on the user itself. So how important user knowledge and user behavior can support the zero trust?
This is very important because always we are saying the human is the weakest factor in the information and cybersecurity. No matter how many control you are implementing, how many solutions you are also adapting in your organization, if you have insider threat, then you will be, let's say, under a threat. Learning and education for the employees, it's very, very important, not only for employees, also for your clients. How to deal securely, do not share your personal information like driving license information, passport details, your ID details, because let's say you want to update your information, so you might be required to answer some questions related to the person. So if you are providing these details for anyone, then they might conduct a fraudulent transactions on your behalf, or they can, let's say, ask for a specific details about your records, your accounts details, all these things. So training and awareness, it's very important for employees, for clients, for, let's say, admin staff, and the employees who is dealing with a privileged identity, or they have access to the privileged accounts.
Exactly. And this is where the employee or the end user play factor in this one. How he should be well educated about the threats around, updated with the latest vulnerabilities. Okay, he should not rely all the time in the system itself. He said, okay, I have anti-malware or antivirus, I am secured, I can do whatever. So knowledge base is very important here to collaborate between humans sense and the system sense, so we can strengthen these channels. Thank you, Hala, for input. Shadi, I think you are running a bit out of time, but as useful information. So Shadi, today, you know, the data is everywhere. Okay, we have it in the cloud, on a premise, hybrid. Some information is stored in the mobility devices. So information everywhere. So this has become a challenge, okay, for us, how to secure this information, how to detect the risk. So here, do we have a decent system can give us a visuality, okay, and visualize these threats and what the right action to be taken against these threats?
Yes, definitely. This is the very important question, because now analytics and end-to-end visibility is not a complementary package anymore. It's a mandate to be have. The three main factors of any successful end-user computing solution should be, sure, the virtualization part, definitely the networking part, but it should be completed by the analytics part, which is giving you the end-to-end visibility on the all layers of your environment, starting from the user, from the applications, from the networking side, from the user consumption. That's why how Citrix is concentrating specifically about this analytics part. We are providing the analytics into these three main areas: the security part, the performance part on tracking the virtual machines, tracking the usage of the system, and as well as the productivity regarding the license, regarding the asset management, regarding how many users, which application they are using. So it gives you the end-to-end visibility. This is not only. We added on top of this as well the integration with the machine learning and the AI, because we don't need only to generate insights, we don't need only to generate reportings, we don't need to only to generate tables. This is most important, but as well as we need to add an automated actions. We need the machine learning to study the user behavior, to study what's happening there, and then take automatic actions to these users. For example, if you have a user that is suddenly starting to download a lot of documents, suddenly to access from a location that is not used to access from, how I'm be responding to it? And if he's doing this at the night, do I need an admin to be awake to do an action? No, that's what the machine learning or the artificial intelligence for the analytics is taking part, for taking an automatic actions on such behaviors. Maybe blocking the access, maybe monitoring him, enable session recording on him, stopping him from downloading documents. A lot of automated actions can be adjusted to be taken. So it is not, as I mentioned, a complementary anymore. It's a mandating for showing up reports, analytics, giving you the end-to-end visibility, as well as using for taking automatic actions after studying the user behavior from that perspective.
Exactly. And that's why threat analytics is so important, to study the threats, from where do the analytics to make a decision on security solution. Okay, sometimes the threats coming to the same person the same time, or threats affect a file or a certain destination. Okay, multiple or twice time in a short period. The threats can coming from anywhere. So studying a threat and have a visual image about this threat and how this threat behavior is so important to tune our system and implement the right solution which can support the security goals. So Naveen, if you are there, if I have a few minutes, I can end up this session with the last input from each panelist.
Yes, certainly, Mr. Rami. You have about 4 minutes, if you can, yes, summarize in a quick, last minute note.
That would be enough. That would be enough. So, my decent panelists, okay, if you can give us a last input about security and how important security from point of view, and how we can improve our security future. Okay, with this is a huge transformation in our digital life. So I'll start with Dr. Manuel.
Yeah, so just briefly, I just want to say that regarding safety, trust is definitely not the good solution, and zero trust is definitely one of the greatest ideas that we've seen so far. And just wanted to raise awareness about the words that we're using in all that, because we're all using trust, zero trust, mistrust, distrust, but we really need to know what we're talking about. So we need definitions, and that's my last point, we need to contextualize those words in specific cultural backgrounds.
Thank you. Hala?
Thank you, Rami. Actually, for me, I want to encourage all organizations to work more in zero trust. I know it's easier for small companies or the modern companies to implement the zero trust. However, for the big companies who have legacy systems, they can start. They can put a plan, identify their risk processes, or the processes that needs to be moved to the digital or to the cloud whatsoever, and to implement the security controls and work in the zero trust, because it will manage the risk properly for them, and it will provide them with advantages and to be to compete in a good way, let's say, in the industry which they are working on. So it's a journey, and they need to start.
Hopefully this journey finished.
Yeah.
Shadi?
Yes, I will take it from what Hala mentioned. We need to start. The zero trust is the starting point that we should starting with, because the security is the main concern for all business nowadays. So starting point is the zero trust, complementing it by the analytics as well as security efforts will not be ending. There is no 100% solution in giving you the end-to-end security. What all the entities need to focus on and concentrating is to following up the vendors and the efforts that keeping up scalable, flexible for new security threats, because each and every hour we have a new security threats. So we need to be adaptable, flexible for this. That's how, from our side as a Citrix, and definitely we are learning from the companies and the sectors that we are dealing with, that how we adapt and should be flexible to integrate with any upcoming security threats.
Thank you, Shadi. Panelists, I really enjoyed have conversation with you. It was really useful information, how we can build our future security. Technology is important. Technology is give us a space where make our life easy, but security also is the top of that to secure this new lifestyle where we are. So I would like to thank you again, and I hope to see you in the nearest future. Thank you.
Thanks, Rami.
Yes, Ms. Hala.
Thank you.
Right. Yes, thank you so much there, Mr. Rami, Mr. Dr. Emmanuel, and Shadi. Thanks so much for joining in. Of course, it was an interesting session. The audience have they have been quite, what do I say? There has been a few questions, of course, that has come up. But again, our next keynote presentation, is from Manage Engine. So he's been waiting for the last 10 minutes. So I'll have to skip that and probably send it across to you all to, answer them on a personal note. Of course, will be shared via email or WhatsApp group that you all are in. Yeah, thank you again so much for making the panel informative.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Nice to meet you all. Bye.
Thank you, Ms. Hala. Yes, Mr. Karthik.
Hi, Naveen.
Yes, Mr. Karthik, thank you so much for joining in. Yes, for the audience, we have a next session, which is a keynote presentation, which is on scale up security for cloud IT management and future of IT trends. So this will be presented by Mr. Karthik A, who is the Chief Evangelist of Manage Engine, one of our sponsors for the event. So yes, Karthik, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Naveen. Let me share my screen right now.
Perfect.
I hope it is visible for...
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. So let me begin with a quick introduction on today's topic. The growing trends in IT add much O's to the administrators, to the O's of administrators in terms of security and management. Cloud IT management has already gained momentum, and organizations look to move towards cloud IT management to reduce non-imperative IT costs and maintenance. A security loophole like a configuration mismatch or missing security patch or unapproved data access or excessive privilege to users can dearly cost you much on IT and your business. So in this session, I'm going to talk about ways to scale up security for your cloud IT management infrastructure. And these security tips are applicable to the future trends in IT as well. You could have hosted your infrastructure in a public, private, or hybrid cloud, and you would have chosen a service model for your business like infrastructure as service or platform as service or software as service or backend as service. And cloud IT management will include all these that I have mentioned here, but it is not limited to this. So it includes help desk and service management, assets and CMDB, which is configuration management database, desktop and mobile device management, identity and access management, security and information event management, network application server management as well. And you would have chosen a private, public, or a hybrid cloud to host these services for your IT. But the major concern these days is to ensure security of your internal and external data. So the next few slides, I'm going to discuss the right security strategy to adopt for cloud IT management and future IT trends. So the first step in this approach is to augment endpoint security to proactively detect and defend against cyber threats. So why is vulnerability an area of grave concern to organizations? The major challenge of growing organizations these days is the increasing number of endpoints. With the steep increase in the endpoints, traditional antivirus, file scanning, and security solutions are no match to the security loopholes that these devices pose to the network. In a study conducted by ManageEngine, close to 37% of the respondents didn't use any kind of endpoint protection solutions or were just in the process of evaluating potential security solutions. The same study had identified that around 33% say that their biggest challenge with the endpoint security solutions lay in its complexity of deploying, management, and using the solution. So when it comes to vulnerability assessment and threat mitigation, you have to scan the endpoints regularly to detect vulnerabilities and mitigate them immediately using patches or alternate fixes. Early identification of imminently exploitable threats that require little or no user intervention. You have to put the vulnerabilities in context to understand their priority, urgency, and impact. You also have to prioritize the response, such as patching, mitigation workarounds. You have to avoid hefty fines for not conforming to cybersecurity compliance and regulations like HIPAA or PCI DSS. Patching might also interfere with the ongoing operations of business. The security configuration management on workstations may include the following, like firewall audit, the ports that have to be allowed, the applications that are allowed to run, etc. Password policies, like the strong password policy and frequent password changes. Microsoft Office security, identifying the location to store documents securely, set passwords for critical files. Secure remote desktop sharing, which includes user approval for sharing, transfer of files, and recording sessions. You also have to manage the network shares, disable the default shares, and ensure shares are accessed through a password. Lockout and logon security. You may have to include a multi-factor authentication for logon activity, manage user rights and privileges, escalate privileges only when it is needed, user account management, which includes disabling the default administrator login, guest login, or friend accounts, user account control, which gives you options to control on user account activity, the default path of storing the files of user accounts, and finally, preventing browser-based attacks by managing the plugins, extensions, and browser add-ons. The enterprise patch management will include automating the patches, automating the installation of patches, use a single agent to distribute patches for all applications and software, have a single console for patch management for Windows, Mac, and Linux, or the hybrid operating systems that you may have in your organization. Ensure patching is done for both Microsoft and third-party applications. Ensure that you have a flexible deployment policy, like after office hours, shutdown or restart policy, after applying the patches, and so on. All patches have to be applied after testing and approval. When it comes to application control, that are the applications that are installed on individual workstations, keep a list of blacklist and whitelisted applications that are allowed or disallowed on workstations. Administrator access has to be removed on all applications and software. You have to provide a just-in-time elevation of privileges to users so that they can install softwares. You don't have to provide them with administrator privileges all the time. Have control over child processes of applications to be doubly aware of processes that do not invoke any virus or ransomware attacks. Provide application-specific privilege access to users and workstations. When it comes to endpoint privilege management, adopt a zero-trust security model and enforce role-based privileges to all users irrespective of the hierarchy. To all the whitelisted applications, you can allow self-elevation of privileges so that users can do a self-installation of trusted software or applications within the network. Also remove all unnecessary local administrator accounts, which when left unnoticed can be a security loophole in your organization. When we have to talk about device control, you have to take control of all ports and connected removable devices, block unauthorized access to your data, and monitor all device and file actions effectively. Prevent data loss with a strict role-based access control policy. Set read-only permission, block copying of data from devices, and that is what is meant as file access control. When it comes to file transfer control, you have to limit file transfers by setting maximum file size and type of file. Create exclusive access for devices to access your computer by adding them to trusted device list. Create secure and temporary access for devices to access your computers when they want to access what they want to access as well. Effectively secure files involved in data transfer operations by creating and storing mirror copies in password protected shares. Monitor file actions in real time. Record salient details like file name, location, along with computer devices and users involved. And that's how you actually go ahead with device control actions. When it comes to file shadowing, you may have to do a data mirroring, which is preventing loss of sensitive files by storing a copy of the file in a secure location. So how do you prevent data loss, or what are the benefits of having a file shadow policy? By reviewing the share folder with the copied data, the actual content of the stolen files can be identified. And this is the first step in a quick and cost-effective recovery, and a crucial one, and it enables organizations to assess the damage and construct a precise remediation strategy. When a network failure is caused by malware injection that leads to corruption of original files, business critical data frequently accessed by remote users can be restored from file shadow remote share folders. Since file details and information about endpoints, users, and devices are documented, impacted users can be warned to change their passwords and encrypt their intellectual property, financial records, or redact their personal data completely. When it comes to browser security, you may have to gain complete visibility of the browsers present in your network, their versions and details of their add-ons, mandate the use of trusted or approved browsers in the network. You may have to deploy a simple and straightforward policy configuration to secure browsers from security breaches, exercise control over installation and usage of browser extension plugins. You should also discover computer compliance status with security configurations and achieve 100% compliance in this regard. Automatically direct legacy web applications to legacy browsers when opened in modern browsers. Assign specific Java versions to web applications based on requirements. Enforce kiosk mode with IT approved websites and business web applications. Securely handle enterprise sites away from malware contacted through untrusted sites. Control access to the internet by providing or denying access to specific sites. Restrict file downloads from unauthorized websites and ensure secure browsing. Gain insights into your network to see which websites and web applications are being used. So these are all the factors that you may have to consider for browser security. When it comes to mobile security, you have to consider these factors, like if the corporate-owned mobile device is lost or stolen, you have to remotely wipe off data, either personal or corporate or both, depending on the use case. Detect and report high-risk and non-compliant devices that do not conform to organizational standards and policies. Allow only enterprise apps to run on mobile devices so as to ensure optimal performance of the mobile devices. Separate the corporate apps from the personal ones and ensure such corporate apps cannot be accessed using a 4G or a 5G network to prevent data theft. Ensure all the mobile devices are compliant with the policies for Wi-Fi, VPN, or password, or app configuration, and much more. When it comes to SIEM, you have to cut down your log storage spending while ensuring security of log data collected from various devices. Audit security events and meet IT compliance requirements like PCI DSS, GDPR, or HIPAA, or much more. Access and manage log data from anywhere. And finally, scale up your network architecture without worrying about log volume. And if you had actually listened to the previous panel discussion, analytics was also a part of security. So you may also have to consider data analytics when it comes to scaling up your security for cloud IT management. When it comes to data analytics, you want to look in for a software or a cloud vendor which provides augmented and predictive analysis of data. You may have data from all verticals like service desk, network, server, application availability and performance monitoring, fault management, user management, security, information and event management, desktop configuration and patch management. So gather all the data in a single location and try to project data with so that you can transform data to information, to knowledge, to wisdom through collaborative analysis of the data that has been collected. And you also want to have a rich visualization of data, which can help you with interactive dashboards and easy to use reports. Finally, you may also want to receive alerts when a data breaches a threshold. To further enhance your security, you may also consider storing passwords in a centralized vault, provide secure access, secure remote access to IT resources as and when it is needed, and revoke the access once the job is done. Privileges can be escalated as and when it is needed, so as to start with the minimum privilege to all technicians. Keep monitoring the activities of privileged users, and if there is any deviation in the identified in the usage or pattern, you can escalate it as a security breach and take necessary actions thereupon. Ensure password and active session management is protected for your DevOps resources too. Finally, maintain application and database passwords in a centralized vault and rotate them frequently as you do for other IT resources like network devices, routers, switches, firewalls, and much more. So when it comes to UEBA, which is user entity behavior analytics, you have to record the user and entity behavior through log collection from workstations, servers, domain controllers, and network resources. Allow a grace time for the behavioral patterns to be identified and recorded, and any deviation in the pattern is associated with a risk factor that will help you to identify insider threats or account compromise or data exfiltration. When it comes to data security, you have to first discover the data, find, analyze, and track sensitive data, which is known as personally identifiable information, audit file servers, monitor, report, and receive real-time alerts for changes made to files and folders, analyze storage, analyze and identify redundant, outdated, and trivial data to declutter your file servers and cut storage costs. And finally, when it comes to compliance, you have to choose the right one based on your industry and business strategy. PCI DSS for banks and financial institutions, GDPR, the widely used general data protection and regulation, ISO 27001 for security standards, and much more. So with this, I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to wait for some questions to be posted on the chat window.
Thank you so much, Karthik. In fact, very informative, very well presented. So yes, there are quite a few questions. Of course, I would want to put that across to you on a personal note, send it across to you to answer it personally with the delegates who have requested.
Sure.
Of course, considering the time, in fact, we are running late by close to about 17 minutes now. So we have our next panelists who are waiting. Yes, having said that, thank you so much. And Manage Engine is one of our sponsors, so request the delegates and the other participants to visit their booth under the exhibitor. And if you have any questions, further questions, or any queries at all, you can drop in there. We have executives from Manage Engine who are seated there to answer or to discuss anything at all with regards to their capabilities and solution offerings for the region. Yes, and also for the delegates and of course sponsors and speakers, we have launch access where you can precisely request to meet any specific delegate or anyone for that matter, and you can have video chats with them, and also you can schedule meetings maybe later today or anytime during the week using the launch access. So request you to please do take a look. And the platform is open till about 6 p.m. today. So make full use of the networking opportunity that the platform has been customized for. Yeah, thank you so much there, Karthik. And again,
thank you. Thank you, Naveen. Take care.
Pleasure, Karthik. So yes, so up next we have another panel discussion, an interesting topic, I must say. We have our panelists here. Okay, so Mr. Jacob Matthew, okay, who is the information technology consultant from the government of Abu Dhabi, who will be moderating the panel discussion on how to create effective cyber and cloud security programs for access control, service continuity, and governance to stay ahead. Mr. Jacob?
Hi, Naveen. Hi.
Yes, Jacob.
So thank you very much, and Ramadan Kareem to everybody on the call. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the distinguished panelists, our the hosts, the sponsors, and without much ado, I just wanted to introduce our two panelists who are in today's meeting. The first is Prince. Prince is a leading information security and data governance for Al Fadan Group in UAE. He's having over 13 years of professional experiences in financial services, consulting, and the telecom industry. Prince has experience in information risk management, including cybersecurity, as well as IT risk audit process among different industries. He holds a master's degree from ICFI University, along with various professional accreditations in risk management from Howard University and ISACA. So thank you very much, Prince. And I also like to introduce our other panelist, Timer. He's a well-known speaker, speaking at a number of information security and information seminars in the region. He's an experienced information security and data protection executive with over 18 years of experience in cybersecurity, enterprise risk management, cloud security like Azure and AWS. Timer is currently the head of cloud security and DevOps at Network International, where he's also responsible for handling cloud security portfolio across the group. Timer has served as the head of information security for several major companies in the Middle East. And as I told you, he also holds a number of certifications like CISSP, CIPPE, AWS certified, Azure certification. And it's a very great honor and privilege to introduce both the panels. So first over to you, Prince. We could ask you about the agenda we have been given about how to create effective cyber and cloud security programs for access control, service continuity, and governance to stay ahead. If you could kindly share your thoughts to us. Over to you, Prince.
Sure. Thank you for the introduction, Mr. Jacob, and thank you, Naveen and team, for hosting this event and having us on board today. So I would just like to start with the cybersecurity, first of all, right? That the cybersecurity is a universal risk at this point of time, which is very well highlighted by the Global Risk Forum as well. It is a top 10 risk which was consecutively identified since 2016 until 2021. It is a top 10 risk globally, which is something which is known to the industry. Now, I will just take one step back. You know, when I started my career in the IT, we started learning with the OSI layer, you know, which talks about the different data layer from the layer 1 to layer 7. But there is a one more with the advent of the information security and the cyber. There is a one more layer which is added, is the human layer, the human factor, which is missing in the OSI layer. So when we say the human factor, right? So the human, it is further divided into a different segments, right? Because definitely we always talk about the user awareness in any organization, but for me, the important part is to effectively spread a proper awareness for the IT team, which is the most crucial part of any organization, right? So for the CISO, for the security team, if your IT team is well aware, your system admins, your network admins, or your DB admins or your application developer, if they are well aware about the security risk and the security threats, right? So definitely the job of a CISO is become much more easier. I would not say easier, but they are more towards focus on the latest threats and the risk, because many of the time the CISO and the information security, they need to spend a good number of time to educate their IT teams, and to just run behind them, to just they are closing all the information risk on the timely basis. Now on the second thing, now with the advent, not advent, but due to this global pandemic, this COVID situation to the whole world, the cloud adoption is become much more even than the ever before. So this is the something which is now creating a concerns for the information security and as well as the IT team. So this is very important for the CISOs and the IT team to just make sure that they are well aware that who are their users, who are their customer. And the third and the most critical part is their external business entities. So I come from the financial background. So the industry, because our business is primarily dependent on the third parties, the agents and the banks, and the interconnectedness to your system. So if we are well aware that who are my external party who are talking to my system, the cyber risk on the cloud can be minimized in a much faster and the non-complex way. The third is the business continuity I want to speak about. So the business continuity, I will speak about the challenge first, because nowadays the sophisticated cyber risk can render your business continuity and the risk management practices in a highly sophisticated way, because we have the business continuity practice, we take the backups on the real-time basis or near to real-time basis. So if your systems, your database are corrupted with any malware or any viruses, so you need to understand that you are also replicating the similar thing to your backup and the DR strategies as well. So it is very important when you actively assess your infrastructure, your servers, your database, you need to consider the passive infrastructure, which is your DB and the backups as well. So this is just a high level view from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prince. I'll just hand it over to Timer.
Hi everyone. I hope you can hear me, please.
Yes, Timer, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Jacob. Hi, Prince. It's an honor to be invited here to speak here. First time I'm speaking on such an event here, especially this one, the Bahrain hybrid one. So for my end, like Mr. Jacob mentioned, I have had experience with multiple environments and multiple organizations and so far. So I've worn many hats in my career. Currently, I'm wearing the hat of cloud security, which I've been looking at, and it's become very interesting last couple of years. Especially with the global pandemic, it has become a very disruptive force for modern enterprises, and especially with regards to how companies approach the modern workplace and their infrastructure. So everybody wants to have digital transformations and cloud adoptions. Gartner was saying that they're expecting it to increase by 18% in 2021, the adoption of the cloud, because the cloud has a unique model. Management says that your cost will go down, your BCP will go up. It will become much easier because you don't have to worry about physical data centers, and your costs are going down, and your delivery will become faster. So Middle East has been no exception to this trend. This has been happening globally. So many giants like Noon and Saudi Ground Services, I've seen they're all adopting the cloud. So it's become a big problem for CISOs and CIOs, because security is a top concern. I think it's the top concern, like the way Prince said, especially with regards to security and how it will be secured. So and my experience has been, usually what happens is when a cloud adoption project happens, either two things happen. Either security is overrepresented, or it's underrepresented. Either business tries to sideline security and say, man, these guys will create problems, so let's not involve them too much. Or what happens is security becomes a little bit too paranoid, and they start implementing too many controls. And what happens is it becomes very frustrating. So the whole business value of the cloud goes out of the window, and business gets frustrated. So in my experience, if you don't want to copy paste your on-prem onto the cloud, The cloud is its own animal. No? It is a completely different model in how it works. And you have to take advantage of its native capabilities, which are very, very powerful if you use them properly. And you can actually make the cloud more secure than what you have on-prem, provided you use it properly. And you don't just don't just think, okay, whatever's on-prem, I have to just copy paste it onto the cloud. I think that is where a lot of companies face problems. So 2 or 3 I can just quickly give. What I've seen, what my lessons I've learned is, one is like you have to look at your identity, your cloud identity, because there is technically no firewall in the cloud. There is no security perimeter. You have to focus on your identity and put all your controls there. So, and by identity, I don't just mean your user IDs of your users. It can be a server, an appliance, anything. Everything has an identity in the cloud, and you have to focus your controls there. And basically what happens is, and I don't mean just putting like multi-factor authentication and saying, okay, that's it. No, actually you have to implement your policies there. The cloud is very powerful context-based policies present, which derive from threat intelligence and AI. They can make intelligent decisions based on where you're coming from, what's your risk level, what type of device you're coming from, and then allow or disallow access based on that. You can put in single sign-on. All these things, like if you do, you can have a very, very powerful model, which will give you, which will really control what type of access is happening. And the other thing I would say is one area which always these companies, they feel, especially in this region, is too much emphasis is put on consultants. So they don't build in the skills in-house. They try to outsource it to somebody else. They say, okay, we have a 6 to 12 month project happening. Let's hire some consultant. He will come and he will give a nice little report to us. And unfortunately, what happens is the guy goes away, and your internal security team has to run that project. And the cloud has very different technologies like infrastructure as code, containers, Kubernetes, and all that. It goes to a software base, so infrastructure goes away. And if you don't have those skills in-house, your infosec team will not be able to keep up. And what happened, IT will get frustrated because we are not able to add value. So that is something I would very much focus on. And last but not least is using the threat intelligence which you get. The wonderful thing about this cloud, it gives you access to billions and billions of threat intelligence data. And what you call, if you use it properly, you can create policies. What I've seen is security teams get very excited. They say, okay, wow, we have access to so much data now. And they create alerts. And what happens is their mailbox starts getting flooded with a huge amount of alerts. And after a while, they get bored and they just move it to the junk folder or something. So what happens is you have to create like intelligent based. A lot of those things you can completely automate in the cloud. Things which you do manually on-prem. Like an alert comes, somebody is taking an action. If you do it, you can create automated playbooks and completely automate all the low-hanging fruit. So security teams can actually add value and not worry about small stuff. So this enables early detection and it really gives value. So these are just 3 of the best practices I've seen. If you implement it, then really in some ways your cloud can become even more secure than your on-prem, and you can really take the value of the cloud. So that is from the cloud model which I wanted to propose. These are just 3 of my tips which I wanted to give. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, both Prince and Taimur. And while we are engaged with the panelists, can I just remind everybody to use the Q&A, and if you have any questions, please do raise them. And we will come back to you either in the session if you have time or later on offline. So moving on to the next question to the panelists. So if a company is planning the cloud migration, for example, they're not yet migrated, but they're planning the migration, or maybe they only have Office 365, and they're planning to move other components. So what do you recommend? How do they start the planning process? What are the steps they should take? So let's start again with Prince, and then after Prince, maybe Taimur could add on. Thank you.
Sure, Jacob. Thank you. See, for the cloud migration planning and strategy, because this is something which I am actively engaged at this point of time. See, now let's see, cloud has a different models, right? Let's understand, because there's a infrastructure as a service. Just give me a second, please. So cloud has a different model, whether it's a infrastructure as a service, whether it's a platform as a service, and the software as a service, right? And each model comes with a different pros and cons, right? So this is the first thing which an organization needs to carefully evaluate when they are planning to move to the cloud, that which model they are adopting and what are the risks associated with each of this model. So since I come from the financial services, So for us, it is very important that wherever we are moving on the cloud should be based in the same country. So we don't have a privilege to move to completely on the cloud based or maybe in some other country, right? So from the security perspective, like Temur also highlighted this point, that first of all need to identify the data points, right? What are the data points which you are moving on the cloud, whether it's a shared infrastructure or whether it's your a dedicated infrastructure which is going to have, right? Who's going to have access of this infrastructure? That needs to be carefully evaluate who are those users, and accordingly you need to decide the controls, because cloud has its own security option. Cloud can also give you some maybe their soft firewall, their access control mechanism. Some of them are also provided with a CASB solution. Some of them also come with the multi-factor authentication, because everything, this all comes with the cost, right? So for the management, because management is totally a non-technical, right? So they don't understand the core technicalities of, you know, all the risk associated with each of the technology, whether it's on-prem, whether it's a cloud. So it is a fair responsibility of a CISO or a security manager, right, to translate, to quantify the risk in a non-technical way. Go to the management, take your budgets, whether you want to have a MFA, whether you want to put a data encryption controls, or whether you want to have a CASB or any other technology. This is something which I feel, as per my experience, that where the security teams lags primarily, because we are too much into the technology, right? But when we go to the next level, right, when we talk about something, they don't understand. So management only know about the risk. So that's why information security and the overall the risk operation of the organization, there is a risk department. It should be interlinked together so that you are translating your security risk into a actual risk operational risk, and then it is going to the management for the further approvals. Because from the technology side, from the control side, there are ample of solutions in the market which comes with the cost, and this cost is not a small or easy cost. So management need to have a fair evaluation of the risk. So that is the reason, Temur, just to answer your question, sometime when the management is not able to get a fair value from the IT team, they hire a third-party consultants to come and just translate that technical thing into a business language, and to make them understand what actually the risk is associated with it, and when they're spending the money, whether it's giving them the actual value and the safeguarding from that risk or not. Yeah, so that from my side. Thank you.
Thanks, Prince. Timur?
Yeah, pretty much everything Vince said. I don't think I can add much more on what he's already said. Yeah, I mean, whenever usually I've seen that companies are adopting or moving to the cloud, first question usually management is asking that is on-prem more secure, is the cloud more secure? So I'll be a bit controversial. I've always said no, neither the on-prem is more secure nor cloud is more secure. In both of them, people can make mistakes and compromise security. They just need to understand that it's a different environment. You need to take advantage of the cloud and how it works and understand how it works. Then you'll be able to add actually more value, and it becomes more a question of pros and cons. Management needs to take where value can be derived. A lot of times I've seen people even make mistakes. They think that the cloud will reduce their cost drastically, and if they don't do it properly, then actually the cost will go up. If they don't plan it out properly and they don't understand what they're getting into. They have a lot of romanticized notions about the cloud. It's going to be perfect and everything's going to get solved over there. That's not how it works. There is a learning curve before you can actually really start to take advantage of its capabilities. One thing I would definitely add, when moving to the cloud, a lot of people think compliance will go away. Like Prince said, you have like PCI DSS and all those other things. Definitely, it does not go away. You have like a shared services model. So it's like a building, right? I'm like, there is an owner and I'm like a tenant. So I'm renting that space, that security of the apartment. What's there inside, I have to make sure I'm locking all the doors and everything. And the security of the overall building, that's the owner. So if you're on Azure, Microsoft is the owner, they're going to take care of the building, but your apartment is still your responsibility. So if you leave the windows unlocked, you can't really turn around and blame the owner, right? It was your own fault. So you still need to make sure a lot of the compliance and those controls are there. So that's why the shared services model is something I always advise management to take a look at. That really gives them the full overview of what is their responsibility and what is the responsibility of the provider.
Thank you very much. If we can move to the next question, is about MSPs, managed security providers and SOCs. So what is your advice to companies with regard to MSPs and SOCs? Prince,
Yep.
and then
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure, Mr. Jacob. So regarding the MSP, the managed security services, this is something I think which is very popular, especially in the UAE region, right? But now again, I will I will come to the Temur already highlighted. The compliance is something which needs to be considered carefully when you are talking about the outsourcing your security operation, a certain part. Again, now the central bank UAE, they came up this year in February 2021. They released the data protection regulations for the financial houses. So now it is no more an option, or maybe which companies can maybe think of it, but this is a mandatory now from the data perspective. So there are a good number of controls which brought out by Central Bank of UAE, that on the data residency and the certain level of the data access which needs to be maintained by the financial houses. And now on the SOC side, yes, building a own SOC within your own premises, trust me, this requires a good amount of investment in terms of like financial and in terms of resources as well, which is not feasible. And I would say this is the best practice, and this is something which many of the organizations are adhering to, outsourcing the SOC operations. And the preference model is, if the SOC is within the UAE, that is the something which organizations are preferred. And I think this is the something which is going on, and even for us as a financial institute, we're also adhering the same model, where we are trying to outsource some of our system for the continuous monitoring. But the point here is how effective they are. This is something which I think organizations need to evaluate very carefully, that what are the events you are considering, what are the data points you are sharing with this SOC companies, and need to make sure that they are not transferring any critical information, any critical data which is being taken care by your SOC provider, and just be sure that this data is not further transferred to any other third party or any other party which is not within the same country. So these are the few things which organization needs to consider before they onboard any external party for the SOC monitoring services. But in nutshell, SOC monitoring is very important, and building a SOC in-house, it's not feasible for even many of the mid-scale organization. And I think outsourcing is the something which is the best model. Thank you.
Thank you, Prince. Timer?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I mean, especially in this region with the number of attacks that happen, I mean, the SOC is pretty much a given. You need to have a SOC, honestly, in order to make sure you don't get compromised and to have incident response. But I'll just add on what Prince said. In the cloud, you have the ability to automate incident response to a large degree. A lot of things which you do on-prem, like for which you need a SOC, right? Like if, I don't know, just a poor example, somebody opens up like the remote access to the internet in your company, right? Your SOC will kick in, they will detect, and they will make sure it gets closed and all that. You can actually you can have playbooks configured in the cloud. You can actually, it can detect it, it can close that port, and it can create an executive summary and send it to your InfoSec team and the IT team and everything without even, and you can put it on Microsoft Teams, on Slack. I've actually implemented that, and it becomes very, all those you can actually go down and drill. And so what will happen is your SOC can actually focus on the high, like actual value added alerts, actual incidents which are happening. You don't have to worry about, you don't have that alert fatigue where your mailbox has like 100 alerts which are not responded to, and you have to go one by one and contact the guy and find out or whatever. No? So that I've seen that is really a big benefit there. You can actually bring down a lot of your what you call alert noise, which you can say the background noise, it can go away, and you can really get a lot of value out from the SOC.
Much, Timer and Prince. It's been really very helpful, very insightful. I think we could have chatted for hours because there's so much of information you have shared. However, due to time constraints, I would like to now just give you all the last minute anything to add to the panelists. You want to add as panelists to the attendees. So we'll start with Timur. Anything in the last minute you'd like to add, and then over to.
No, like I said, I mean, pretty much. If you want to summarize, like what I want to say, the cloud model, like I said, people should not have an unrealistic expectation. The cloud is just somebody else's data center. You have a data center, you want to move in cloud, it's somebody else's data center. You still need to implement controls. There will still be cost involved. You'll get a lot of benefits. Of course, 100%. There are a lot of for managed services for moving to that model. But then you need to be realistic and you need to understand you're giving away a lot of control also. And there needs to be, like, for instance, data regulation things to take into consider. You need to make sure your legal is signed off and everything. Provided you do it properly and you have that expectations properly aligned, a lot of benefit can be achieved for moving to the cloud. That's pretty much it.
Thank you very much, Timur. Really appreciate your time. Thank you, Prince.
Yeah, just for my side, the closing comment is, cyber security and the data confidentiality is something which is not only belongs to the IT or maybe the certain team member. It is the boardroom discussion nowadays. It is the concern for the management. So it is very important for the CISO or for the information security team to use a risk-based approach. Doesn't matter you are going on the cloud or you are on-prem. The risk-based approach is very important, and it is very important to highlight the right risk and just translate into the business and just highlight it to the management in a very fair and the clear language. Secondly, the compliance part. So definitely compliance has a no option. Organization has to implement the compliance, but however, to have the effective controls in place, you have to go beyond the compliance. So now this is again a responsibility of a CISO to identify the risks which are the beyond compliance, right? And just make sure that these risks are adequately identified and the risk is not a mitigated, but actually it is the limitize the risk on the organization. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been really helpful, and thank you both for your valuable insights.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Naveen. Thank you,
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, so Naveen, I'd like to hand it back to you. If there are questions, we can take it offline because we have now crossed the time limit. But thank you again for the invitation, and thank you for the panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jacob. Thank you, Timur. Thank you, Prince. In fact, yes, interesting presentation again. Yes, there are quite a few questions that has been dropped on the Q&A tab by the audience. Unfortunately, yes, we've exceeded the time, so we will send that across to you. And also requesting all the speakers, panelists, and also the delegates. We in fact have a lot of questions which were unanswered. So however, my team will be reaching out to you on a personal note to see if we can share it with you, and also see if we could schedule some meetings with the ones who have asked those questions. Request you to give them maybe about 10 or 15 minutes so that you can share your inputs and insights with those questions. Yes, thank you so much there. So next up, or rather we're almost towards the close of the session. Yeah, so definitely we would want to thank all of you all for being part of it. And of course, we have our chairman, Dr. Jassim Haji, who will be actually giving us his final remarks with regards to the two-day initiative that we put across. So over to you, Dr. Jassim.
Thank you very much, Naveen. Is my voice clear?
Perfect, sir. Loud and clear.
Thank you. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for attending the 2 days, those who attended only today. The speakers, the sponsors, it's great to have you. It's one of the, I would say, important conferences that I would like to see the organizers continue doing it at least every year, coming back to Bahrain, hopefully next year physically, and conducting it and bringing such a galaxy of speakers ladies and gentlemen from various sectors to give us so much insight into what we have learned in terms of cloud and security. I believe the discussions are raising a lot of probably more thoughts for us and for the expertise to go back and investigate. There are a lot of outcomes from such an important conference. Thanks for the organizers, Naveen, Brigitte, for making this happen. And I would like to also thank you on behalf of the community in Bahrain. And if you're wondering where I'm standing, I'm just standing. Yesterday, I talked about Bahrain positioning itself as a regional research and development center for AI, data, and cloud. And His Highness is Nasser's center for research and development. And just to show you today, I made the journey. This is not close by, but far to come and share with you the location itself and my background. It's a huge locations and with a lot of facilities. So just wanted to take this opportunity again to emphasize in picture the determination of Bahrain position and its people to becoming the regional hub and the regional park with the great efforts from the leadership. So again, thank you all for attending, for inviting us, and always welcome to lovely Bahrain. Thank you. Naveen, back to you.
Pleasure, sir. Thank you so much. Yes, indeed, the center is looking beautiful. Definitely, we wouldn't mind a visit soon if the situation permits. And thank you also for being with us and making this event, a huge success with all the efforts that you put in terms of suggestions, in terms of speakers, panelists, whatsoever. Thank you so much, Dr. Jassim. We look forward to collaborating with you and have many more such initiatives in Bahrain. Thank you again. All right then, so we're almost coming to an end. So of course, I would want to highlight a few things, or rather I would have my colleague Shalini, who would be here with some closing remarks and of course with some thank you notes to all of them who made this possible. Over to you, Shalini.
Well, yeah, thanks, Naveen. Am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
Great. So what a fantastic show. 2 days of back-to-back keynote presentations, some really power-packed presentations, and extremely successful Bahrain Summit, as usual, like all our events in the past. Just want to quickly summarize what all we did. Today, the last day of the Bahrain Hybrid Cloud and Cybersecurity Summit 2021, wonderful power-packed 2 days, both the days, if I include, starting off today with Mr. Al Sabia, Head of Information Technology, Bahrain Mumtalakat Holding Company, giving his inaugural keynote, which was focused on Bahrain's showcase of flair and flamboyance. And then we have the eminent presence of our dear chairman of the summit, Dr. Jassim Haji, president of Global Artificial Intelligence Group himself, giving his blessings to us on the last day of the greatly successful BCC Summit by sharing his closing remark minutes ago. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our partners, Oracle, Kalam Telecom, McAfee, Citrix, Veeam, and Manage Engine, who added to the wonderful summit experience. Let me also thank each one of you, our respected speakers, panelists, partners, and most precious delegates for giving us your precious time. And I request you all to do not miss the lounge area. And don't forget to explore the booths and connect with all our partners and see what they can do for you on our last day of the BCC Summit Bahrain. Thank you again, Bahrain, for giving us this wonderful opportunity. And see you soon at our upcoming events. And please stay safe, dear participants. Stay safe, stay blessed. Goodbye until we meet again, Bahrain. By the entire team of Rendezvous experts, I would like to thank you each and everyone who stayed with us until the very end, who devoted their valuable time to share their keynote presentations, be a part of the fantastic panel discussion. We at the Rendezvous experts definitely value your time and your expertise and sharing with us your experiences and your knowledge. Thank you once again. Goodbye, Bahrain.